Chapter 293. Free Island and Scoros Island were nowhere to be seen in the boundless sea. The special envoys of the Odin Kingdom and the Hittite Kingdom, who were also the special followers of the Church of Liberty and the Church of Darkness, were very familiar with the location of Free Island and Scoros Island. They could find them even if they squinted their eyes, so they naturally didn't think that they had gone to the wrong place. However, they really couldn't find the location of the church's headquarters. Thus, they searched everywhere, circling the original location of the two islands. After spending 3 days, they still didn't find anything. They were at a loss and didn't know what to do next. However, the two islands no longer existed. How could they find them? Even if they searched here for a lifetime, they would never find them. Unfortunately, they were still at a loss because they didn't dare to believe that the two islands had been blasted into countless fragments under the joint attack of a group of terrifying godlike powerhouses and were submerged in the sea. While they were foolishly searching the sea, Lin Feng's group had already reached their final destination under the guidance of Xiao Ran, the crafting school. Unlike the Church of Liberty and the Church of Darkness, the crafting school was located on a high mountain in the Eternal Continent. Although there was no city at the bottom of the mountain, it was no less prosperous than a city. The streets and alleys extended in all directions, and there was an endless stream of people and carriages. The mountain was high and the forest was dense. It was very quiet and peaceful. Ancient buildings stood tall among them, giving off a sense of seclusion. Xiao Ran braced himself and led Lin Feng's group to this place. He then looked at Lin Feng with apprehension. "Lin Feng, you won't empty the treasury of the crafting school, will you?" Lin Feng heard this and laughed heartily. "Of course not. You will be the head of the crafting school in the future. Even if it was for you, I wouldn't do that." That's good, that's good." Xiao Ran sighed in relief and gently wiped his cold sweat. "Yes, don't worry, I won't empty it. At most, I will only take half." Lin Feng patted his shoulder and smiled. Xiao Ran's hand, which was wiping off his cold sweat, suddenly froze in midair. His vision turned black and his legs went soft. He almost fainted. Lin Feng didn't seem to notice Xiao Ran's reaction. Instead, he was calculating his harvest this time. He sighed inwardly. 9,800 sets of rare materials, more than 100 sets of precious materials, and dozens of boxes of soul stones. There are at least 1,000,000 soul stones in there. The accumulation of the Vatican of Darkness and the Eternal Continent is indeed extraordinary. Not to mention the materials, just the 1,000,000 soul stones was a shocking amount of wealth. More than 1,000,000 soul stones was equivalent to more than 10 billion essence stones. On Earth, it was equivalent to more than 10 billion RMB. If it were anyone who suddenly received such wealth, they would not be able to remain calm. However, these soul stones were nothing to the Church of Darkness and the other countries. The value of those materials was far more valuable than 1,000,000 soul stones. Materials were the most valuable things. Even if he used soul stones to exchange for them, he might not be able to get them. Right, there seems to be a red bead. I wonder what it is. Lin Feng thought. On the mountain. The upper echelons of the crafting school had long been informed that Lin Feng and his party were going to attack the 3 major forces. They had made preparations in advance and were all solemn, waiting for the arrival. The ones who informed them were the members of the crafting school who were released by Lin Feng. At that time, they fought side by side with Xiao Ran and even saved Xiao Ran's life. Lin Feng could not do anything to them. After that, Lin Feng and his party were going to attack the Church of Liberty and the Vatican of Darkness. Therefore, he could not bring these burdens with him. In the end, he simply ignored them and pretended not to see them. After escaping from Lin Feng's hands, they did not stop and rest day and night. Finally, they returned to the crafting school in the wee hours of the morning. After returning to the crafting school, this group of people immediately informed the upper echelons of the crafting school. Although Lin Feng and his party had spared their lives, they were still members of the crafting school. If they deliberately hid the news and did not report it, how different would they be from traitors? At this time, the crafting school's second elder, 13th elder, head of the disciplinary hall, head of the crafting peak, and 2 other elders stood in front of the mountain gate. Behind them, several disciples revealed expressions of death. Even if they were slightly afraid, they were forcibly suppressed. According to Qing He and the others, this group of people are all supremes. But is that possible? The second elder could not help but secretly shake his head. 40 supremes. Not to mention the forces of the Azurewood continent, even the 3 major forces of the Eternal continent combined do not have that many. He was more inclined to another answer. They should be 9th-rank powerhouses with the ability to temporarily float in the air. That's why they were mistaken for supremes. However, among this group of 9th-rank powerhouses, there should be 1 or 2 supremes. Even so, he did not dare to lower his guard. 49th-rank powerhouses and supremes. With the current incomplete lineup of the crafting school, it would be somewhat troublesome to deal with. He and the 2 elders beside him were elementary supremes. The 13th elder, head of the disciplinary hall, and head of the crafting peak were all 9th-rank powerhouses. Apart from them, the crafting school did not have any other powerhouses of the 9th rank or above. Only a few disciples with relatively high seniority remained. Some of them were 8th and 7th rank powerhouses, but most of them were 6th rank or below. Although it's a little troublesome, as long as they dare to come, we can make them stay here forever. The second elder's face was cold. Squinting his eyes, he stared ahead. They're here. Suddenly, an elder beside him whispered. The second elder fixed his eyes on them. Immediately, his brows furrowed deeply. His heart was in a perilous situation. They're actually all flying here. Flying was the signature skill of Supremes. It was a skill unique to Supremes. Although 8th and 9th rank Earth mages could also fly, that kind of flying was completely different from the flying unique to Supremes. Rather than calling it flying, it was better to call it the upgraded version of the levitation technique. Thus, the second elder instantly recognized the strength of this group of people. Supremes. The group of disciples really did not lie to him. The people who came were actually Supremes. His breath caught and his mind went blank. 37 Supremes. Heavens, how is this possible? No matter what, he could not figure out how there could be 37 Supremes, and all of them gathered together. Before the fight even began, his momentum had weakened by 90%. His confidence and arrogance were instantly crushed, leaving not a trace. Could it be that they really are the Supremes of the Greenwood continent? That they've already discussed beforehand, and took advantage of the fact that we're empty to launch a sneak attack on our headquarters? The more the second elder thought about it, the more he felt that his guess was correct. His face was as black as the bottom of a pot, extremely unsightly. Cunning, the people of the Greenwood continent are too cunning. How could they do this? How could they take advantage of the fact that the headmaster and the others left the Eternal Continent to launch a sneak attack on our headquarters? For a moment, he was at a loss for what to do. The 2 Supreme Being elders beside him, as well as the 13th elder, Lei Ming, and the others, were all stunned. The weapon refining school disciples behind them were all stunned. Everyone was stunned, because they could not imagine that there really were 37 Supremes visiting the weapon refining sect. 37 Supremes, these were 37 Supremes. When did Supremes become as cheap as cabbages on the roadside? When did Supremes start to move out like a swarm of bees? This was completely illogical. 37 Supremes, how are we supposed to fight? An elder's throat was dry, and his voice had become hoarse as he muttered in a daze. The surrounding people were also stunned. Yes, how are we supposed to fight? While they were in a daze, Lin Feng and the others had already entered the weapon refining sect's territory and descended from the sky one by one. The second elder took a deep breath. He could not believe it. Compared to these 37 people being 37 supremes, he would rather believe that they were all high-ranking earth magicians. 9th or 8th rank did not matter. As long as they were earth magicians, they had nothing to fear. As for Xiao Ran, he was automatically filtered out. In his eyes, Xiao Ran was a traitor. After this battle, he would take care of Xiao Ran properly. Even Lei Ming would not be able to stop him. It must be an earth magician, it must be. The second elder hypnotized himself. He was not reconciled, extremely not reconciled. Driven by the unwillingness in his heart, he released his mind energy and swept it towards Lin Feng. He wanted to test the strength of these people. Before he got an accurate answer, he was not willing to accept that cruel answer. His mind energy instantly enveloped Lin Feng and the others. At that moment, his expression froze, as if he had received a huge blow. It really is, Supremes. His eyes widened, and the unwillingness in his heart was instantly replaced by endless fear. Before he could retract his mind energy, Lord Blackrice, who he had probed, frowned. Who was Lord Blackrice? He was the leader of the 3 kings in Despair Prison for more than 10,000 years. He was a genuine beginner Earth Saint. There were more than 10 million Supremes in Despair Prison, and no one dared to be disrespectful to him. How could he, who was high above, allow a mere beginner Supremes to use mind energy to test his strength? Therefore, he was furious. Humph! Although he did not make a move, a cold snort could be heard coming from his nose. This snort was like rolling thunder, exploding in the second elder's mind. At the same time, his mind energy, which had not been retracted in time, was instantly attacked by an incomparably terrifying mind energy. Under the attack of that terrifying and invincible mind energy, the second elder's mind energy was like a small boat that had been smashed by a huge wave. It did not have the slightest bit of resistance, and immediately collapsed upon contact. Ah! The second elder let out a blood-curdling scream that made one's hair stand on end. Then, the second elder's figure flew out and smashed into a stone pillar dozens of feet away. Together with the stone pillar and the statue on the stone pillar, it was smashed into pieces. The second elder's 7 orifices were bleeding. His eyes were wide open and filled with blood vessels. He stretched out his hand, wanting to grab something. After struggling for a few breaths, his body trembled, his head tilted, and he stopped breathing. Everyone from Weapon Refining Sect was shocked and surrounded him in a panic. A beginner Supreme stretched out his trembling hand to check, and immediately cried out, "He's dead!" Once these 2 words came out, everyone was shocked. Beginner Supremes. The second elder was a beginner Supremes. His strength could be said to be the strongest among all the people from Weapon Refining Sect present. However, a beginner Supremes had not even started fighting, and with just a cold snort, he was killed in one move. What kind of terrifying means was this? What kind of terrifying strength was this? Where did this monster come from? At this moment, all the people from Weapon Refining Sect looked at Lin Feng and the rest with a huge change in their eyes. From seriousness and fear, to the current despair. Begging for votes. Weapon. Chapter 294. With the death of the second elder, the crafting school was like a group of dragons without a leader. The disciples and elders fell into an unprecedented panic. Now that Sect Master Mu Wushuang had gone to the Greenwood continent to personally preside over the war, and the junior Sect Master was also waiting for orders, neither of them were in the crafting school. With the death of the temporary Sect Master, there was no one left to stabilize the situation. Lin Feng didn't have the slightest bit of sympathy for the terrified disciples and elders of the crafting school. When you decided to attack the Greenwood continent, you should have been prepared for the retaliation of the Greenwood continent. Facing the crafting school, Lin Feng, the unfettered sovereign, and the others wouldn't be lenient. If not for their relationship with Xiao Ran, the crafting school would have already ceased to exist. Why would he waste his breath here? After a long time, Supreme Revolving Wood, one of the two elders of the crafting school, slowly stood up. Gathering his courage, he glared at Lin Feng and the others and coldly said, "Lin Feng, you've gone too far." The crafting school immediately felt the same. These people were too arrogant. They all looked at Lin Feng and the others with hatred, as if they were innocent victims of an enemy invasion. Gone too far. Lin Feng shrugged indifferently and asked, "When your crafting school sent a large number of experts to attack the Greenwood continent, did you think that was going too far? We only copied your crafting school's actions. How was that going too far? Could it be that your people attacking the Greenwood continent was righteous, and our Greenwood continent's counterattack was heinous and unforgivable? Speak, if you can give me a reason, I'll turn around and leave. But if you can't, then you can wait to die." Lin Feng's questions immediately left Supreme Revolving Wood speechless. His face turned red, and he was incomparably sullen. "You don't know what to say?" Lin Feng mocked. "Only you can attack us, but we can't attack you. What kind of logic is this?" Supreme Revolving Wood stubbornly refused to admit his mistake. "But our crafting school hasn't done any damage to the Greenwood continent. You killed the second elder of my weapon refining school." As soon as he finished speaking, he regretted it and wished he could give himself a tight slap. Saying such words would only make him a laughingstock. But since he had already said it, he could only brace himself and fight to the end. Lin Feng and the others looked at each other, speechless for a moment. "Good, very good. What a powerful logic." Lin Feng stared at Supremacy Revolving Wood and said with incomparable amazement, "I suddenly feel that this world is a little crazy. With your intelligence, you were actually able to cultivate to the level of an initial level supremacy. It's really a little inconceivable. I think those experts who have been stuck at the 9th stage for their entire lives must be very dissatisfied." "Humph!" Sovereign Revolving Wood snorted coldly. Before Lin Feng could say anything, Black Rice shook his head and said, "Lin Feng, have you forgotten what I said to you in the Despair Prison?" Lin Feng was startled for a moment, then reacted. Inwardly ashamed, he said, "My apologies. I couldn't help myself and said a few more words to them." Then, he looked at the weapon refining school and said, "I'll give you all a chance to live. You can report each other and see who was in favor of attacking the Greenwood continent. If you report 3 or more people, you can live. If you're reported 3 or more times, haha." His chuckle sent chills down everyone's spines. "I'll give you all half an incense stick's worth of time to think it over. If no one reports by then no one from the weapon refining school will be spared." Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air at these words. All of the weapon refining school's members were greatly shaken. Supremacy Revolving Wood and the others' expressions changed greatly, turning ashen. Even Sovereign Carefree and the others couldn't help but look at Lin Feng. This method was a little too cruel. It was easy to imagine that under these rules, the ugliness of human nature would be displayed incisively and vividly. Those who had been in favor of attacking the Greenwood continent would have nowhere to hide. No matter how good their friendship was, at this moment, for the sake of survival, any kind of friendship could be betrayed. Of course, there might be a slight error, but in accordance with the principle of better to kill 1,000 by mistake than to let one person go, even if they killed 1 or 2 by mistake, they had to do it. Sovereign Carefree and the others silently looked at Lin Feng. In the future, no matter who you offend, you can never offend Lin Feng. This thought instantly appeared in their minds. Lin Feng indifferently looked at the weapon refining school's members. His face was cold, as if he didn't care about the thousands of lives in front of him. But in reality, did he really not care? No, it wasn't that he didn't care. It was just that his disguise was so good that no one could see through it. In the eyes of the crowd, he had become a cold-blooded, emotionless executioner who disregarded life, a bloody butcher. He had no idea that in the hearts of the crowd, he had been labeled as extremely dangerous and not to be offended. If he knew, then he would be even happier, because the effect of his words was far better than what he had imagined. Was this not worth being happy about? In fact, he had no choice but to do this. This was because he had to completely destroy the Weapon Refining School's members from the bottom of their hearts. He had to make the Weapon Refining School fear him to the bone and leave a deep impression on them. He had to make the Weapon Refining School's members tremble in fear when they hear his name, not daring to have the slightest thought of revenge or resistance. Only in this way could the threat of these people be reduced to the lowest. Xiao Ran also realized this point. He deeply sighed in his heart. If it wasn't for my feelings, Lin Feng wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. At this time, his heart was filled with contradictions. On one hand, it was the Weapon Refining School. On the other hand, it was his younger brother Lin Feng. He didn't know what attitude he should use to face Lin Feng, the disciples and seniors of the school. In his heart, he felt guilty towards Lin Feng, and even more guilty towards the school. This caused him to stand there with a complicated expression on his face. Lord Black Rice quietly looked at Lin Feng with a trace of admiration in his eyes. Not bad, you have the potential to become a king. As for what Lin Feng said just now, he didn't care at all. Even if several thousand small fries were to be killed, he wouldn't even blink an eye. The expressions of the Weapon Refining School's members fluctuated. Some of their facial muscles even twitched as their hands subconsciously clenched. Lin Feng, if you want to kill me or torture me, do as you please. There's no need to play these tricks. At this time, Supreme Pang Hai, one of the Supremes beside Supreme Revolving Wood, stood up with a swoosh and put on an expression that said he would rather die than submit. Lin Feng looked at Supreme Pang Hai. Are you sure? Supreme Pang Hai's heart skipped a beat. He disdainfully said, Aren't you just relying on the experts behind you? Do you think you have the guts to attack my Weapon Refining School by yourself? Heh! Supreme Carefree couldn't help but laugh. You mean to say that if your Weapon Refining School sends out a large number of experts to attack the Greenwood continent, we, the Supremes of the Greenwood continent, should ignore it and let Lin Feng face it alone? Cough cough. Lin Feng looked at Supreme Pang Hai in ridicule and said, I have to admit, your provocation skills are terrible. Even an idiot can see through it. Seeing Supreme Pang Hai clench his fists in anger, Lin Feng shook his head. Don't be nervous. Although your provocation skills are terrible, I will still fulfill your request. One punch, as long as you can take one punch from me, I will let you go. Do you dare to take one punch from me? As he spoke, he glanced at the rest of the Weapon Refining School. He was looking for an opportunity to establish his dominance and display his strength to the greatest extent. He didn't expect Supreme Pang Hai to take the initiative to ask, wasn't this exactly what he wanted? Success. Supreme Pang Hai was overjoyed, but he mocked, with just you. As an elementary Supreme, he could naturally see that Lin Feng's cultivation was also that of an elementary Supreme. Although he had heard that Lin Feng could refine a 3-striped spiritual armor, he wasn't worried at all. The 3-striped spiritual armor increased defense, not attack. He was wearing a 2-striped spiritual armor, and his cultivation was high. Even among elementary Supreme, he was ranked at the top. He firmly believed that even if he stood still and didn't dodge, Lin Feng would at most injure him. He might not even be able to cause him any serious injuries, let alone kill him. Moreover, he wasn't a block of wood. Did he not know how to dodge? He admitted that Lin Feng was indeed a rare genius. However, no matter how terrifying Lin Feng's talent was, it couldn't change the fact that Lin Feng was only an elementary Supreme. Moreover, he had just stepped into the Supreme level not long ago. For such an elementary Supreme, not to mention one punch, even if it was 1,000 or 10,000 punches, he wouldn't be afraid. He secretly sneered. As I expected, young geniuses, especially such dazzling geniuses, are usually very arrogant and conceited. I only need a crude provocation to win a chance to live. However, a brat who had just entered the elementary stage of supreme martial artist actually dared to say that he could kill me with a single punch. Does he really think that he's the invincible war god Xing Feng who swept through the world? This is good too. If he wasn't so arrogant, I wouldn't have a chance to live. I have to thank him for his arrogance. Isn't this old fellow too cunning? Supreme Xian Mu looked at Supreme Pang Hai enviously. His heart was full of regret. Why didn't I think of this just now? I missed such an opportunity in vain. Sigh. Lin Feng seemed to have seen through Supreme Xian Mu's thoughts. He smiled faintly and said, "Just one is too boring. Why don't the two of you come at me together?" He pointed at Supreme Pang Hai and Supreme Xian Mu and said, "As long as the two of you can take one punch from me, I'll let you go. How about it?" His tone was full of temptation. "You should know that this is your only chance to live." Hearing this, Supreme Xian Mu's eyes instantly lit up. This was a pleasant surprise. He and Supreme Pang Hai looked at each other and saw the excitement and surprise in each other's eyes. However, Supreme Xian Mu didn't let down his guard. Instead, he said, "How do I know if you can represent them?" He looked at Lord Blackrice, Unfettered Supreme, and Snowflake Supreme behind Lin Feng. They didn't agree. "Seniors, it seems like I still need you to agree." Lin Feng pretended to be helpless and said, "Why don't you agree?" Lord Blackrice, Unfettered Supreme, and the others nodded respectfully. "Let's do as Lin Feng says." Seeing Lord Blackrice, Unfettered Supreme, and the others nod in agreement, Supreme Pang Hai and Supreme Xian Mu were overjoyed. At this moment, they were completely relieved and didn't feel nervous at all. Although the battle hadn't started, they were full of confidence. They were two veteran primary-level Supremes. Moreover, they were wearing double-runed spiritual armor. How could they lose to a primary-level Supremes? Let alone taking one punch from Lin Feng, even if they had to fight to the death with Lin Feng, they were confident that they could easily defeat Lin Feng. Supreme Xian Mu secretly gave a thumbs up to Supreme Pang Hai and transmitted his voice. "Old Pang, you're still better." Supreme Pang Hai was incomparably proud, but he still replied modestly, "You're too kind. It was just a coincidence." While they were talking, they didn't notice that the corners of Lord Blackrice, Unfettered Supreme, and Snowflake Supreme's eyes had a trace of ridicule. P.S. First update. Sorry I'm stuck. It's not that I don't know how to write, but that I don't know how to write the highlight, write the feeling, and edit it. Begging for votes. Chapter 295. These two fellows actually dared to take a punch from Lin Feng. Their courage is commendable. Unfettered Supremacy exclaimed. It doesn't matter if they dare or not. In any case, I don't dare. Flying Fox tightened his collar and said in a low voice, "Lin Feng can't be judged by common sense." Snowflake Supremacy stared at Lin Feng with her beautiful eyes. If they knew the true power of Lin Feng's punch, I wonder if they would still be so calm. Star River mocked. Lord Blackrice looked at Pang Hai and Xian Mu, then looked at Lin Feng and fell silent. He didn't know how to evaluate Pang Hai and Xian Mu. Should he admire their courage? Praise their cleverness? Or laugh at their stupidity? Especially at this moment, when the two revealed uncontrollable excitement on their faces, Blackrice became even more speechless. They're actually so excited about throwing their lives away? He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. People nowadays. Xiao Ran looked at Lin Feng in confusion. He knew that Lin Feng was very powerful, but he didn't know exactly how powerful Lin Feng was. He only knew that Lin Feng was an initial stage supremacy. However, Xian Mu and Pang Hai were both initial stage supremacies. Moreover, they were veteran initial stage supremacies. Not to mention taking a punch from Lin Feng, it shouldn't be difficult for them to defeat Lin Feng. Therefore, he couldn't understand Lin Feng's intention at all. I can't see through him anymore. Xiao Ran sighed. His eyes flickered with a hint of worry. He smiled bitterly and muttered, I hope my worries are unnecessary. The weapon refining sect's 13th elder, Lei Ming, looked at Lin Feng with a complicated expression. Half a year ago, Lin Feng was still an insignificant 5-star blacksmith. Despite his outstanding talent and the attention of the various powers, he was still just a prodigy. At the very most, he was just an exceptional prodigy. His status was far beneath that of a Jizuan realm cultivator. 2 months ago, Lin Feng had grown into a top-notch artificer with a success rate of 100% when crafting a 3-patterned spirit armor, rising above all the artificers on the continent in one fell swoop, becoming the #1 artificer on the continent. Even Mu Wushuang did not dare to compete with him. In the end, he attracted a large group of supreme martial artists to work for him, and his limelight was unparalleled. Today, Lin Feng had arrived as a king. Not only was he accompanied by a group of terrifying supreme martial artists, but he had also broken through to the initial stage of supreme martial artist, becoming the youngest supreme martial artist in history. This kind of talent was simply shocking. And all of this had happened in merely half a year. In half a year's time, Lin Feng had grown to the point where he could only look up to him. His speed of growth is too fast, too fast. He felt as if Lin Feng had only taken a nap, and he had already grown to this extent. If one had not seen it with their own eyes, they would never be able to experience that kind of shock. He did not know how to evaluate it, but his thoughts were extremely complicated. When he heard about the agreement between Lin Feng, Supreme Xian Mu, and Supreme Pang Hai, he did not know why, but he actually had a premonition that Lin Feng would win. Although reason told him that this was impossible, even if Lin Feng cultivated one of the 7 strongest laws, it was still impossible. But his mind could not help but give birth to this kind of absurd and crazy thought. This thought was, Lin Feng will win. Especially when he saw the hint of mockery at the corner of Lin Feng's mouth, his premonition became even stronger. Unlike Lei Ming, the Crafting Peak's head instructor, Hu Bing, and the Punishment Hall's hall master, Wang Kuan, were very optimistic. They both believed that Supreme Xian Mu and Supreme Pang Hai would be able to easily receive Lin Feng's punch and successfully escape. It was not just Hu Bing and Wang Kuan. In fact, all of the weapon refining sect disciples, as well as Supreme Xian Mu and Supreme Pang Hai, thought so. They did not have any reason to doubt this indisputable answer. On one side were 2 veteran early-stage Supreme Xian wearing dual-rune spiritual armor, and on the other side was a brat who had just become an early-stage Supreme. Was there any suspense in the outcome? Although they did not have a chance to escape, if Supreme Xian Mu and Supreme Pang Hai could take care of Lin Feng, display the might of the weapon refining sect, and extinguish Lin Feng's arrogance, they would still be very happy. In this way, even if they died, they would not feel so bad. At the very least, this incomparably arrogant brat's face would be swept clean, right? I really want to see that brat's flustered and exasperated appearance. Everyone in the weapon refining sect was filled with anticipation. Only Lei Ming's expression was heavy and full of worry. Lin Feng moved his wrists and slowly raised his head. I don't have much time to waste here. Are the 2 of you ready? If you are, then I'll make my move. How dare you look down on us? Supreme Xian Mu was incomparably furious, but he suppressed it and took a deep breath. He sneered. It's just a punch, what else do you need to prepare? You think too highly of yourself. Even if Lin Feng used a Supreme Xian King artifact or a top-grade 3-rune spiritual artifact, he would not be afraid at all. Hearing this, Lin Feng smiled and did not look angry at all. Instead, he turned his gaze to Supreme Pang Hai. What about you? Supreme Pang Hai said indifferently, no need to talk nonsense. If you want to fight, then fight. The 2 of them did not take Lin Feng seriously, but they were secretly prepared to dodge. Although they were extremely confident, they were not careless at all. After all, this concerned their lives. "Oh, looks like you're all ready." Lin Feng looked around and swept his gaze across the disciples of the weapon-refining sect. Finally, his gaze returned to the original point. He said casually, "I said, 1 punch. As long as you can take this punch, I'll let you go." The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Lord Black Rice, Honorable Carefree, and the rest sighed inwardly. This brat is starting to show off again. Under everyone's gaze, Lin Feng clenched his right fist. He slowly raised his fist. His speed was extremely slow, making everyone a little impatient. At this moment, his eyes narrowed slightly. Ha! Suddenly, a punch was thrown out at lightning speed. The previous moment, it was as calm as the surface of a lake, without any ripples. The next moment, it turned into a sudden bolt of lightning. The speed was so fast that everyone was caught off guard. This punch was too fast. Among everyone present, only Lord Black Rice, Honorable Carefree, and Honorable Snowdrift could catch a trace of it. The others, including Supreme Heavenly Thunder, Supreme Men Luo, and other mid-level Supremes, could not keep up with Lin Feng's speed. As for the many early-level Supremes, they could barely see a flash of afterimages. Before Lin Feng made his move, Supreme Xian Mu and Supreme Pang Hai were already prepared to dodge. They were even fantasizing about what to do after they escape. Even when Lin Feng raised his fist, they did not notice anything unusual. They even had a disdainful smile on their faces. However, the instant Lin Feng's fist struck out, Autark Xuanmu and Autark Pang Hai's pupils shrank. Too fast. This was the only thought they had in their minds, and their bodies instinctively dodged. However, they had only moved a few inches when a glaring light forced them to close their eyes. An incomparably terrifying force struck their chest. This force was so great that they did not have the slightest bit of resistance. Like a kite with a broken string, they were sent flying. Ah! 2 shrill screams rang out almost at the same time. However, the people who let out the shrill screams were nowhere to be seen. At the same time, the ground began to tremble violently. The ground where Supreme Xian Mu and Pang Hai had been at had sunk 20 zhang deep into the ground. The ground around them began to crumble, and dozens of tall buildings nearby collapsed. The flat ground began to crack, and fissures that were 300 zhang long, 400 zhang long, or even longer, began to crisscross with Supreme Xian Mu and Pang Hai at the center. Sand and pebbles flew into the air, and dust filled the air, blurring everyone's vision. It was a spectacular sight. It was as if the heavens had created this scene. Even if the weapon-crafting sect master, Mu Wushuang, was here, he would be shocked. In the blink of an eye, the dust had settled. Lin Feng was flying in the air. He slowly withdrew his fist. When he saw the 2 Supreme Xian Mu and Supreme Pang Hai being sent flying, he chuckled. 1 punch, it's over. His chuckle sent chills down everyone's spine. At this moment, the surroundings were deathly silent. The extreme silence did not give birth to peace. Instead, it gave birth to despair and shock. The weapon-crafting sect's 13th elder, Lei Ming, the Hall of Punishment Wang Kuan, the weapon-crafting peak's chief instructor, Hu Bing, the disciples, and even Xiao Ran were all staring at Lin Feng. Their minds were blank. Supreme Xian Mu and Supreme Pang Hai were no longer breathing. However, those with slightly better eyesight could vaguely make out the 2's figures. There was a large hole in their spiritual armor. Their chests were caved in. Their skin was cracked. Their internal organs had turned into minced meat. Large amounts of blood flowed out. They were no longer breathing. There was no heartbeat. Their pupils were dilated. Their eyes seemed to be filled with disbelief. However, there was a disdainful smile on their faces. This disdainful smile was the same one they had when Lin Feng hadn't punched out yet. Their contradictory expressions were incomparably strange. Dead. Everyone from the weapon crafting sect stared blankly at the two. This scene caused everyone to feel suffocated. They wanted to say something, but when they opened their mouths, they couldn't say anything. There were no words that could describe their feelings at this moment. In their hearts, they were all screaming in terror. Instant kill. It was actually instant kill. Two veteran supreme martial artists wearing double-patterned spiritual armors were killed by a single punch when they went up against him. Lei Ming was stunned. Hu Bing was stunned. Wang Kuan was stunned. Xiao Ran was stunned. All the disciples of the weapon crafting sect were stunned. The only thing left in their minds was this magnificent and shocking scene. They couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. From the beginning to the end, they had never thought that this would be the result. This was a result that they didn't dare, didn't want to accept. According to their imagination, Supreme Xian Mu and Supreme Pang Hai would easily dodge Lin Feng's punch. At the very least, they would be able to rely on their profound cultivation and double-patterned spiritual armor to easily block this punch. In the end, Lin Feng would lose all face and vomit 3 liters of blood in anger. They had always thought this in their hearts. Until Lin Feng punched out, they hadn't changed their minds. On the contrary, they were very much looking forward to seeing Lin Feng make a fool of himself. However, the final result shocked everyone on the spot. Their expressions froze, and they were all dumbfounded. Merciless instant kill. 2 veteran Supreme Xian Mu with 2 double-patterned spiritual armors were actually killed in a single punch by Lin Feng. The chill in their hearts rushed to the top of their heads, and their legs began to tremble. That punch is too terrifying. Requesting votes. Weapon. Chapter 296. After the second elder of the crafting school, Supreme Xian Mu and Supreme Pang Hai also fell. Everyone fell into fear and despair. Their hearts completely collapsed, and they no longer had any hope of surviving. Lin Feng's plan was carried out very well. With the disciples of the crafting school reporting to each other, Lin Feng did not hesitate or show mercy. Very soon, he carried out another bloody massacre. The head of the disciplinary hall, Wang Kuan, and his disciples, as well as several other disciples, were all killed. Over half of the thousands of crafting school disciples were killed. Wails and cries were everywhere, and the ground was covered with blood. The corpses piled up into a small mountain, causing one's face to change color and despair. In the eyes of the crafting school, Lin Feng had become a ruthless, merciless, and vengeful butcher, a demon and a villain who disregarded life. Whether it was Lin Feng's strength or Lin Feng's methods, they all left a deep impression on them. A shadow was cast over their hearts, and they could not breathe for the rest of their lives. Lei Ming and Hu Bing could only watch helplessly. They were both in pain and grief. The world-renowned crafting school had fallen to such a state. It was lamentable and lamentable. The materials in the crafting school's inventory are so little. In the crafting school's treasury, Lin Feng said with some disappointment, "Forget it, I'll leave these materials for Brother Xiao to distribute." Walking out of the treasury, Lin Feng said to Xiao Ran, "Brother Xiao, I originally thought that your crafting school had more materials than the Dark Vatican. I didn't think that your crafting school would have so little materials. Isn't your crafting school a little too poor?" Xiao Ran smiled bitterly. "Our crafting school is a big family. Everyone in the school, from the elders and headmaster to the youngest disciple, are all craftsmen. The materials we use every day are as vast as the sea, and we don't have much in stock at all. Every time the materials are brought back, they are divided up by everyone. There's not much left." He was also very helpless about this. Although there were not many materials, there were countless weapons, armors, bracers, helmets, and the like. All in all, it was still a considerable amount of wealth. Unfortunately, Lin Feng didn't care about these things. In his opinion, the quality of these things was too low. It was simply a waste of materials. "Big Brother Xiao, I'm leaving now. I'll leave the crafting school in your hands. Lin Feng looked at Xiao Ran and said seriously, I hope that you can take care of the crafting school with all your heart. Those who are disloyal should be killed. Don't be soft-hearted. I don't want to destroy the crafting school because of this. Xiao Ran said in a heavy tone, I will do my best. Lin Feng patted his shoulder and said with a smile, I believe in you. After saying that, Lin Feng flew into the sky and fled 1,000 miles away. Xiao Ran's expression was very complicated. After a long time, he smiled bitterly and muttered, You believe in me, but I don't even have confidence in myself. After leaving the crafting school, Lin Feng, Lord Black Rice, Unfettered Supremacy, and Fluttering Snow Supremacy flew towards the Greenwood continent. They didn't stop for a moment. Boss, you were so handsome just now. You're almost as handsome as me, Nono said narcissistically through telepathy. Lin Feng's face was slightly pale. The aftereffects of slaughtering many people were slowly showing. However, he resisted the discomfort and forced a smile. Is that so? I thought you would say that I'm more handsome than you. Lin Feng was a little proud of the fact that he had killed 2 experienced primary-level supreme martial artists with a single punch. After all, very few people could achieve such a feat at this moment. Lord Black Rice suddenly said, Lin Feng. Lin Feng was startled and asked, Lord Black Rice, what's wrong? The attention of Unfettered Supremacy and the others was immediately attracted. They all pricked up their ears. Lord Black Rice said seriously, I suggest that you increase your battle experience, ponder over the use of the law of earth, and carefully study your own unique skills. Perhaps this will be of great help to you. He paused for a moment and directly pointed at Lin Feng's weakness. After coming out of the despair prison, I've seen you fight several times. Every time, you use your elemental energy and the law of earth, relying on your outstanding attack and speed to violently suppress your enemies. However, your use of the law of earth is at the most superficial level. It can be said that you have a mountain of treasures, but you don't know it. You should know that the law of earth is very mysterious. Not only can it increase your attack, it can also increase your defense and speed. Your battle experience is also pitifully low. It's almost negligible. With your current battle style, it shouldn't be much of a problem to deal with those who are much weaker than you. However, if you meet someone who is slightly weaker than you, or someone whose strength is on par with yours, then you will definitely lose. Unfettered Supremacy and the others thought about it and nodded secretly. Obviously, Lord Black Rice's words were very accurate and insightful. So serious? Lin Feng was shocked. You don't believe me? Lord Black Rice didn't explain much and directly said to Supremacy Men Luo, You are a mid-level Supremacy. Your defense, attack, and speed are roughly on par with Lin Feng. You and Lin Feng have a match. Let Lin Feng understand what a battle between Supremacies is like. Lin Feng was eager to give it a try. That's a good idea. Men Luo smiled. All right then, I'll be your sparring partner for now. They stopped in midair. Below them was the endless sea. Men Luo smiled faintly. Attack me then. Use your fastest speed and strongest attack. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows. I'm afraid you won't be able to block it. Lin Feng, just do as he says and attack him with all your strength, Lord Black Rice said. If he really can't block it, I'll take action to resolve it. Hearing this, Lin Feng's heart settled, and he immediately nodded. All right. He took a deep breath and became serious. Elemental energy gathered in his fist, and without any warning, he raised his speed to the maximum and punched out. Bam! A huge sonic boom came from the air. Lin Feng was extremely confident about this punch. A smile appeared on Lin Feng's face, but his smile soon froze. I didn't hit him. His eyes widened. How is that possible? I've already used my fastest speed, but I still didn't hit him. He released his spiritual power, and he instantly discovered Supremacy Men Luo's figure. He was just 30 feet away from him. Again. Lin Feng didn't admit defeat and punched again. But the result was still the same. Punch after punch. He threw out dozens of punches in the span of a breath, but none of them hit. No matter how hard Linfeng tried, it was to no avail. Supremacy Men Luo easily dodged, as if he was taking a stroll in the park. A faint smile always hung on his face. Continue. Linfeng clenched his fist, and what little elemental energy he had left was once again channeled into his fist. Boom! He was shocked. I hit him this time. However, although he hit him, he didn't cause any damage to Supremacy Men Luo. Seeing that unchanged smile still hung on Supremacy Men Luo's face, Linfeng's heart sank. He's deliberately standing there and taking my punch head-on. Against Supremacy Men Luo, his previously invincible speed and attacks had lost their effect. It's not over yet. Linfeng threw out another punch. This time, Supremacy Men Luo also threw out a punch, and it hit Linfeng's fist head-on. This was his first attack. Boom! The two fists collided and a terrifying force exploded. Linfeng was sent flying by this huge force, and he instantly fell into the sea, causing the sea surface within a radius of 10 kilometers to cave in. The blood in his body surged, and a trace of blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth and merged into the sea. Be it attack, speed, or defense, Linfeng was mercilessly crushed. Supremacy Men Luo hovered in midair and slowly retracted his fist. He looked at Lord Blackrice. Isn't this too much? Lord Blackrice smiled faintly and said, A serious illness requires strong medicine. I'm very confident in him. He won't collapse just like that. He's Lord Lin Hai's descendant, and he has talent that doesn't lose to Lord Lin Hai's. Therefore, he must be the best. Otherwise, he'll be embarrassing Lord Lin Hai. Lord Blackrice thought to himself. At this moment, Linfeng flew out of the sea and into the sky, looking at Supremacy Men Luo with a complicated expression. He was full of frustration. He originally thought that he was already considered an expert among supremacies, but he was instantly beaten back to his original state in the battle with Supremacy Men Luo. His pride and arrogance were completely shattered. It turned out that it wasn't that he was very powerful, but that the opponents he met before were too weak. In this battle, all his weaknesses were exposed. He was completely defeated from beginning to end. He smiled bitterly in his heart. I often laugh at others for being arrogant, but I'm actually even more arrogant. What he couldn't understand the most was why he and Supremacy Men Luo were clearly equal in strength in all aspects, but why was Supremacy Men Luo able to defeat him so easily? Now, do you realize the difference between you and a mid-level Supremacy Man? Lord Blackrice looked at Linfeng. Under Linfeng's puzzled gaze, he slowly said, Actually, your speed and attack aren't bad. You're wearing a 3-pattern spirit armor, and your defense isn't bad either. However, you don't know how to use the law of Earth. You only know how to integrate the law of Earth, and you have no battle experience. This is why you can't fight back against a mid-level Supremacy Man. If you master the way to use the law of Earth and increase your battle experience, then normal mid-level Supremacy Men Luo might not be your match. Of course, if you can develop a powerful ultimate skill, then you'll be invincible against anyone below a high-level Supremacy Man. Linfeng's spirit was lifted. Really? His originally gloomy eyes suddenly had some light and hope. Lord Blackrice chuckled. Whether it's true or not, won't you know once you try? Hearing this, Linfeng bowed sincerely and asked seriously, Lord Blackrice, please teach me how to use the law of Earth. Battle experience could be accumulated slowly, but Linfeng knew nothing about the use of the law of Earth. However, Supremacy Blackrice shook his head and said, It's not that I don't want to teach you, but that I can't. Everyone's comprehension of the law is different, and there's also a huge difference in how to use it. For example, the law of water can be soft or hard. When integrated into different moves, different effects can be achieved. The law of fire is violent and full of explosive power, and the way to use it is completely different from the law of water. Therefore, regarding the use of the law of earth, I can only tell you the simplest principle, and that is to peel off the law of earth. Divide the branches of the law of earth into 4 types. One is suitable for attack, one is suitable for defense, one is suitable for speed, and one is useless. After that, use these branches of the law of earth in your attack, defense, and speed. This is the in-depth use of the law of earth. After saying this, he continued, however, how to peel off the law of earth. This can only be understood by yourself. No one can help you. P.S. First update. The outbreak has begun. The first update has begun. Begging for votes. Weapon. Chapter 297. Lin Feng might have the right to be proud when it came to refining, but he was a complete novice when it came to cultivation and battle. Lord Black Rice's words, as well as the battle with Supremacy Monroe, had greatly affected him. He began to think deeply about how he could split the law of earth he had comprehended into 4 branches, how he could quickly increase his battle experience, and how he could create his own unique skill. You have to take one step at a time, and you have to eat one bite at a time. Lin Feng, you just need to increase your battle experience first. Then, you can think about how to use the law of earth, Lord Black Rice said. Lord Black Rice suggested, stripping the earth law is a complicated and profound problem. I suggest you settle your own matters first before walking around. With a calm mind, you can carefully observe the laws of the forest, the flowers, the lightning, the clouds, the famous mountains and rivers. This will be of great help to you in using the earth law. Lin Feng said gratefully, Thank you, Lord Black Rice. Although Lord Black Rice didn't teach him anything directly, he pointed him in the direction of the future. Lord Black Rice looked at Supreme Men Luo, Supreme Flying Fox, and the others, and said, From now on, you guys will take turns to be Lin Feng's sparring partner and help him increase his battle experience. With their speed, they would need at least 3 to 5 days to return to the capital of Zhao. During this time, they could use a lot of time to increase Lin Feng's battle experience. Using so many supreme experts as sparring partners just to increase his battle experience was such a luxury. There probably weren't many people as lucky as Lin Feng in the world. At least, that was what everyone thought. No problem. Okay. Even if Lord Black Rice didn't ask, they would be happy to help. Supreme Thunder said impatiently, I'll go first. You guys decide who goes first. As long as it can increase Lin Feng's battle experience, it's fine. Lord Black Rice looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng, you don't have any objections, right? Lin Feng relaxed his brows. After thinking for a while, he agreed to Lord Black Rice's arrangement. He said, Let's do as Lord Black Rice says. He actually wanted to say that Space Number 1 could also be simulated in Space Number 1, but in order not to arouse suspicion, he agreed with Lord Black Rice's decision. High above the sea, Lin Feng and Supreme Heavenly Thunder fought as they flew towards the Azure Wood continent. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Lin Feng was gasping for breath, and his head was dripping with sweat. Supreme Heavenly Thunder's breathing was steady, and his heartbeat was normal, as if he was not affected at all. From the beginning to the end, Lin Feng was tortured to the point that he didn't have the slightest bit of temper. Supreme Heavenly Thunder chuckled and said, In the past, I've always been beaten down by you. This time, I've finally regained some confidence from you. Great. Lin Feng rolled his eyes. That's why you're willing to be my sparring partner, right? It's nothing, it's nothing. Supreme Heavenly Thunder laughed. You should quickly rest and recover your elemental energy. Only then will you have the strength to continue fighting. Supreme Flying Fox interrupted. Brother Heavenly Thunder, it should be my turn next, right? How can that be? I haven't even had my fill yet. Supreme Heavenly Thunder glared. At this moment, the rest of the Supremes couldn't take it anymore. They all started arguing, all for the sake of fighting Lin Feng. Looking at this scene, Lin Feng was instantly hurt. What sin have I committed? Why do all of you want to beat me up? Am I really that annoying? If Supreme Carefree knew what Lin Feng was thinking, he would definitely nod in agreement. That's right, you're really annoying. Especially when you're acting cool, you're the most annoying. Lin Feng steeled his heart and said to Nono, Nono, do me a favor. Let me rest for a while. Transform and fly with me for a while. Nono said straightforwardly, Hee, I knew that boss would need me when he needs me. Phew, finally, I don't have to pretend to be a harmless little bird anymore. It's been so long, I almost suffocated to death. In the next moment, Nono flew off from Lin Feng's shoulder. Its body became incomparably huge. When it spread its wings, it was more than 100 feet long. Its head and tail were more than 200 feet long, and its tail fur took up nearly half of its body. Its feathers were indestructible, and its entire body emitted a strange, soft light. It attracted everyone's attention, causing them to be unable to move their eyes away. Demonic beast. Everyone immediately became alert. But then they realized that this demonic beast was extraordinary. It was unbelievably beautiful. More importantly, this demonic beast didn't have any hostility towards them. It seemed to be Lin Feng's contracted demonic beast. Snowflake Prime's beautiful eyes shone brightly. So beautiful! Lord Black Rice's expression was solemn. This demonic beast is not simple. Supreme demonic beasts were not simple, but Nono was especially mysterious. This was because Lord Black Rice realized that he couldn't see through Nono. In fact, he could even faintly smell a trace of danger from Nono. Damn it! An elementary supreme demonic beast actually makes me feel threatened. A trace of surprise flashed past his eyes, but also a trace of fear. This is Nono, my partner. Lin Feng smiled and said, Let's get to know each other first. Nono opened its lantern-sized eyes, blinked, and said, Hi, hello. Unfettered Prime looked at Nono, then looked at Lin Feng, and said with a strange expression, Lin Feng, this is your pet bird? Nono was furious. Damn old man, who are you calling a pet bird? Didn't you hear what boss said? I'm his partner. I'm Nono, the great Nono. Hearing this, Unfettered Prime hurriedly apologized. Sorry, it was a slip of the tongue. Snowflake Prime let go of her reservations and said expectantly, Nono, is it? Can you let me touch your feathers? Well. Nono rolled its eyes. You can ask boss. If he says it's okay, then it's okay. Snowflake Prime immediately looked at Lin Feng and said with a pleading tone, Lin Feng, please let me touch Nono's feathers. What Lin Feng couldn't stand the most was that there was a trace of shyness in her tone. Heavens, this 10,000-year-old ice block actually had such a side to her. It was simply unbelievable. Lin Feng almost fainted, and goosebumps appeared all over his body. He couldn't take it and said, Up to you. I'm going to rest first. After saying this, he flew onto Nono's back, sat down cross-legged, and closed his eyes. It couldn't be helped. Snowflake Prime's appearance was too lethal. Unfettered Prime, Heavenly Thunder Prime, Flying Fox Prime, and the others looked at Lin Feng enviously. A supreme-level contracted demon beast was too rare. They didn't expect Lin Feng to get a supreme-level contracted demon beast without saying a word. Moreover, it was so pleasing to the eye. Even if they didn't summon it to battle, they would feel a lot better just by looking at it every day. This brat must be doing this on purpose. Heavenly Thunder Prime gnashed his teeth in anger. What a blow! Number 1. After entering Space 1, Lin Feng quickly calmed down. This place was like his home. No matter how much pressure he was under outside, he would calm down as soon as he entered Space 1. Master. Number 1 slowly transformed into Lin Feng's old appearance and appeared beside Lin Feng. Lin Feng said in a low voice, I need to accumulate a lot of combat experience. Can you help me? Number 1 said, No problem. Space One can simulate anything. As long as it's a person or object that exists objectively, Space One can simulate it. I can control Space One to simulate a person. This person is generally the same as Master, but it doesn't have a soul or consciousness. Instead, it has an independent intelligence and can fight through high-speed calculations. According to the calculation ability, it can be roughly divided into 3 levels of difficulty: low level, mid-level, and high level. I suggest Master start with the low-level difficulty. Okay, low level it is. Lin Feng trusted number 1's judgment. After that, he asked again. Oh right, number 1, take a look at my current mental strength and physical strength. After about 3 breaths, number 1 said, Master's mental strength has reached 14,520 pps, and your physical strength has reached 10,000 pps. My physical strength has just reached the threshold of supreme level. My mental strength, I didn't expect it to increase so much. Although Lin Feng felt that his mental strength had increased when he broke through to supreme level, he didn't expect it to increase so much. 14,520 pps of mental strength. In other words, time acceleration can reach 1,452 times. Lin Feng sucked in a breath of cold air when he heard the shocking number. 1 day in the outside world was close to 4 years in Space One. That's great. Now I'll have more time to practice. Lin Feng was pleasantly surprised. He didn't realize that the time acceleration of Space One had reached such a terrifying level. After the joy, Lin Feng stabilized his emotions and said, Number 1, you can start. As soon as his voice fell, a person appeared out of thin air 30 feet in front of Lin Feng. It looked exactly like Lin Feng at this time, but it didn't have any emotions. 3, 2, 1. Battle begins. As a cold electronic synthesized voice sounded, Lin Feng didn't have time to react before he felt a shadow flash in front of him. A sharp pain came from his chest, and he flew out and fell heavily to the ground. Then a voice sounded in his ear again. KO. Lin Feng struggled to stand up and stared blankly at the expressionless Lin Feng in front of him. It's over just like that? In the past, it had always been Lin Feng who killed others in seconds. But now, Lin Feng had a taste of being killed in seconds. This Lin Feng gave Lin Feng the feeling that he was even more powerful than supreme-level Meng Luo. If he remembered correctly, number 1 seemed to have said that this Lin Feng didn't have soul consciousness and was controlled by an intelligent mind, but other aspects were no different from him. This time, the blow that Lin Feng received really reached an extreme level. Am I really that bad? It was the same body, but controlled by an intelligent mind, and he could actually display such terrifying strength. And this was only the low-level difficulty. If it was the high-level difficulty, he really couldn't imagine how terrifying it would be. He probably wouldn't be defeated even if he faced a high-level supreme-level unfettered supremacy, right? Thinking of this, Lin Feng's heart was suddenly filled with fighting spirit. As long as I can adapt to the low-level difficulty, I can defeat supreme-level Meng Luo. Seeking votes. Chapter 298. In Space One, Lin Feng didn't have to worry about elemental energy and physical exhaustion, nor did he have to worry about injuries. As long as he could endure the endless boredom, he could fight endlessly with the simulated Lin Feng. Compared to others, Lin Feng came from an unorthodox background. He had never received formal and strict training, and his foundation was extremely poor. This was both an advantage and a disadvantage. His potential was greater than others, but the effort he needed to put in was more than others. He was now like a blank sheet of paper. He could draw a beautiful picture, but it would take more time. Lin Feng panted and grimaced in pain. He was beaten black and blue by the simulated Lin Feng. Even the slightest movement made him feel extreme pain all over, as if his whole body was being pulled apart. Fortunately, it was only a momentary pain. Within a breath, His whole body had recovered, and there were no more scars. Number 1, this guy actually magnified my sense of pain infinitely. As long as I'm hit, it's so painful that I want to die. Lin Feng was helpless against Number 1's approach, but he didn't complain. He knew that Number 1 did this to maximize the effect of his training. After all, only extreme pain could leave a deep impression on him, so that he wouldn't make the same mistake in the future. However, this pain was a bit too much. The simulated Lin Feng stood in front of Lin Feng expressionlessly. He didn't speak, didn't have any expression, and didn't speak. Without a doubt, the simulated Lin Feng was far more powerful than Lin Feng himself. His every attack, in Lin Feng's eyes, was almost perfect. There wasn't the slightest flaw, and it was impeccable. No matter how hard Lin Feng tried to dodge, he couldn't completely avoid it. He could only minimize the damage he received as much as possible. Lin Feng took a deep breath. We have the same body. It doesn't make sense that I would lose to you so much. Gritting his teeth, he stood up, took a deep breath, and prepared to fight again. Number 1's figure appeared beside him out of thin air. 1 hour of experience time is over. Master should have gradually adapted to this kind of battle, right? Lin Feng asked. Experience time? What do you mean? The so-called experience time is actually just for the master to experience and adapt first. After the master has adapted, the real practice will begin. Number 1 said slowly, the following practice will continue until master leaves Space 1. Master can set a time, during which unless someone from the outside calls master, the battle between master and the sim cannot be stopped. In other words, during this period, the sim's attacks will continue, one after another, without the slightest pause. Even if master tells us to stop, it's useless. Hearing this, Lin Feng sucked in a breath of cold air. No room for discussion. At the thought of having to continuously endure Lin Feng's stormy attacks, and the pain that seeped deep into his bones, Lin Feng felt a toothache, and couldn't help but tremble. Number 1 said without hesitation, "This is the best training method I've come up with after analysis. It can increase Master's combat experience at the fastest speed, and even turn it into an instinct engraved in the depths of the soul. If the Master is unwilling to accept it, he can also choose to maintain the previous training method. Master has absolute control over Space Number 1. After a brief silence, Lin Feng asked, "How much more effective can this training method be compared to the previous one?" 39, 8 times. The number made Lin Feng fall into silence again. He felt suffocated. Continuous excruciating pain in exchange for 39. 8 times the training effect. Lin Feng hesitated. If he wanted to get more, he had to pay more. About 3 minutes later, Lin Feng took a deep breath and said resolutely, "Number 1, let's do as you say." Number 1 said, "Please set the time, Master." "There's no need to set the time." Lin Feng said solemnly, "Don't stop the training until someone calls me from the outside. A man should be ruthless to himself. If he wasn't ruthless to himself, other people would be ruthless to him." This was, after all, a world where the strong were respected. Although Lin Feng had made a name for himself by relying on his ability to refine weapons and his illusory background, he knew that everything was illusory and there was no guarantee. A vase might be beautiful, but it would break at the first touch. Therefore, he would not give up any opportunity to improve his strength. "All right, Number 1. Let's begin." Lin Feng was ready for a storm of attacks. 3, 2, 1. Let the battle begin. Hardly had Number 1's voice faded away when the simulated Lin Feng launched an attack brazenly. Shwa! The simulated Lin Feng suddenly accelerated and appeared next to Lin Feng. Lin Feng only had time to move 1 inch before he was punched in the chest by the simulated Lin Feng. An excruciating pain surged to his head. Lin Feng was cramping and twisting his face. Although Lin Feng was blown away by the punch, the simulated Lin Feng obviously did not intend to let go of Lin Feng. He blinked again and caught up with Lin Feng, who was flying backward, before he punched again. Boom. He changed direction, accelerated, and punched again. Boom. 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 Lin Feng was like a sandbag as he was punched again and again by the simulated Lin Feng. Even with Lin Feng's endurance, he could not help but cry out in pain. The endless pain almost made him collapse. Stop, stop. Number 1, stop. Lin Feng's face was pale and he was sweating profusely. However, the storm of attacks was still going on. Not only that, the simulated Lin Feng increased the frequency of his attacks, not giving Lin Feng any time to speak. Lin Feng regretted it very much. He had overestimated his endurance. Under such endless pain and continuous attacks, he could not even hold on for a minute, let alone a few months or even a few years. However, it was too late to regret now. Once the battle began, there was no stopping it. Lin Feng had no other choice. He gave up struggling and gave up on asking number 1 to stop the battle because it was all in vain. The only thing he could do now was to dodge. He had to use all the methods he could think of to dodge the attacks of the simulated Lin Feng. It didn't matter if it was dirty, elegant, or despicable. It didn't matter what method he used. The most important thing was how to dodge and defend. Lin Feng threw away everything in his mind. He only wanted to avoid the attacks at all costs, or defend against the attacks to avoid the excruciating pain. If you want to learn how to hit someone, you must first learn how to take a beating. Lin Feng did not know who said this, but it was very reasonable. Time passed slowly. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days inside Space 1. During this long period, Lin Feng was constantly in battle. His mind was filled with scenes of fighting with the simulated Lin Feng. He had almost fallen into a state of madness. Lin Feng could not remember how many times he was hit. 100,000, 1,000,000, 10 million, or even more times. He went from screaming in pain in the beginning to gritting his teeth and tightening his mouth, not making a sound. He went from being beaten continuously in the beginning to barely being able to dodge a little to reduce the pain he suffered. Occasionally, if he was lucky, he could even dodge 1 or 2 attacks or block 1 or 2 attacks with his fists. This was extremely cruel training, and the effect of this cruel training was extremely obvious. This was a small step in Lin Feng's improvement in battle, but it was a big step in his life. Stop. At some point, the simulated Lin Feng stopped moving, and number 1 appeared beside Lin Feng. Number 1 said, "Congratulations, Master. You have made great progress during this time. You are no longer powerless against the simulated's attacks. Unfortunately, someone outside is calling for you, so this training is temporarily interrupted." Lin Feng's mind was extremely chaotic. Dodging and defending had become his instincts. Other than that, his mind was almost blank. He was silent for a long time before his memory slowly became clear. His voice was hoarse and his tone was a little weird. "Number 1, how long has it been?" "Exactly 3 months." 3 months? Only 3 months? Lin Feng's tone was a little more normal. "I thought 300 years had passed." In the past, he had trained in Space Number 1 for years or even decades, but this time, 3 months gave him the feeling that it was extremely long. He almost forgot everything in the outside world and became a mindless robot that only knew how to dodge and defend. It was over. The long battle, or rather, the long suffering, was finally over. His mind slowly came back to life. He took a long breath and said, "It's time to test the results of these 3 months." 3 months in Space Number 1 was less than 2 hours in the outside world. When Lin Feng opened his eyes, there was a sense of vicissitudes in his eyes. It was not the vicissitudes of life brought about by a large amount of experience, but purely the vicissitudes of life formed by the accumulation of time and endless battles. He no longer had the carefree temperament of before. Instead, it was replaced by a kind of steadiness that was as steady as Mount Tai. compared to his fair skin and capable and experienced appearance, it was a strong visual conflict. Temperament and appearance contradicted each other, but they formed a unique charm. Lord Blackrice, Carefree Prime, and Snowflake Prime all had a trace of doubt in their eyes. This kid seems a little different. Flying Fox Prime seemed to have persuaded Heavenly Thunder Prime. This time it was his turn. Linfeng, it's my turn this time. How's your elemental energy recovery? He asked eagerly. Before Linfeng could speak, Nono said, Boss, can you do it? If you can't, let me do it. I'm your contracted demonic beast anyway. I'm also a part of your strength. After becoming a prime, it had almost never battled with anyone. Its desire to battle was much stronger than Linfeng's. Furthermore, it was very confident. Although it had not really battled, its inherited memories had given it a lot of battle experience. Linfeng slowly stood up and flew out from Nono's back. His voice was like an ancient pond as he said, Let's start the battle. At this time, Black Rice Prime calmly reminded, We can't use the law of Earth in this battle. We can only use elemental energy. Is that okay? Linfeng and Flying Fox Prime both nodded at the same time. No problem. P.S. The first update is here. Starting with double monthly vote. Requesting monthly votes. Chapter 299. The battle between Linfeng and Flying Fox Supremes soon began. Under the gazes of the 35 Supremes and Nono, Flying Fox Supreme's figure flashed, leaving behind an afterimage. When he appeared again, he was already in front of Linfeng, and he threw a punch. Autarch Flying Fox was extremely confident in this punch of his. Based on the battle between Linfeng and Heavenly Thunder Supreme just now, the chances of Linfeng dodging this punch were very slim. It's a lot slower than I thought. Linfeng was still a little nervous at first, but when Flying Fox Supreme threw a punch, he calmed down instead. Whoosh! Just as Flying Fox Supreme was about to hit Linfeng's figure suddenly flashed. He missed. Flying Fox Supreme's fist hit empty air, and the fist force passed through that afterimage and landed on the sea surface. Boom! The sea water suddenly exploded, pushed to a height of more than 3,000 feet by a force. The sea surface caved in, forming the shape of the bottom of a pot. Linfeng appeared 30 feet away, and a smile appeared on his face. This burst of speed is more than 3 times slower than the simulation. Although he couldn't fight back at all in the simulation's hands, he was still able to dodge a few attacks from time to time, and he could barely defend against a few attacks. In comparison, Flying Fox Supreme was much inferior. Whether it was attack speed, burst of speed, or timing, they were all much worse. This gap was even several times greater. This kind of attack can hardly threaten me anymore, Linfeng said quietly. The result of the first round of battle was out of everyone's expectations. Lord Blackrice, Unfettered Supremes, and Snowflake Supremes looked at Linfeng thoughtfully. It's only been a short while and he's improved so much. Unfettered Supremes found it hard to believe. Even if his sparring partners are all Supremes, this kind of improvement is still a little exaggerated. He had to admit that Linfeng's talent was really a little scary. This was especially so when he stayed with Linfeng for a long time. Mr. Black Rice thought to himself, no wonder he is the descendant of Mr. Lin Hai. Normal people cannot be compared to him. Compared to the others, Lord Black Rice found it easier to accept Linfeng's monstrous talent. After all, with Linfeng as an example, no matter how exaggerated Linfeng's performance was, he would take it for granted. On the contrary, if Linfeng's performance was too ordinary, he would find it strange. In the beginning, the Snowflake Exalt might have been a little upset. However, after spending so much time with Linfeng and being repeatedly shocked by the talent that he had displayed, he was now numb to it. He was less shocked and more emotional. Boss, you're so cool. Nono cheered for Linfeng from the side. Come on, beat this cocky guy to the ground. The Flying Fox Exalt's mouth twitched. Cocky guy. He glanced at Nono and then retracted his gaze. Forget it, it was better not to bicker with a beast. Of course, even if he did, he wasn't confident. After all, when beasts of the same level fought with humans, the beasts always had the upper hand. Therefore, it was better for him not to provoke Nono. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to get out of the embarrassing situation. I didn't expect you to improve so much. The Flying Fox Exalt's expression became serious. Looks like I have to be a little more serious. Lin Feng looked at the Flying Fox Exalt quietly. He wasn't proud, nor was he afraid. He was as calm as a mountain lake. Ha! The Flying Fox Exalt attacked again. Although his movement speed didn't increase, his sudden burst of speed was much faster. Moreover, his grasp of timing had also improved. More than 1,000 years of battle experience wasn't just for show. The serious Flying Fox Exalt brought some pressure to Lin Feng. It wasn't as easy for Lin Feng to dodge as it was for the first time. When the Flying Fox Exalt was only 3 meters away from him, he finally got rid of the Flying Fox Exalt's lock on him and dodged his attack. Immediately after, the Flying Fox Exalt didn't stop. He suddenly stopped, turned around, and threw out another punch. This time, Lin Feng didn't dodge because the Flying Fox Exalt's reaction was too fast. Over 1,000 years of battle experience had already turned fighting into instinct. He didn't need to think too much about every move. Bam! Lin Feng was hit and flew more than 300 meters away. Again. The Flying Fox Exalt didn't wait for Lin Feng to speak and chased after him. About 5 minutes later, the two finally ended their battle. Lin Feng was injured, and his face was also a little swollen. However, compared to the previous battles with the Supreme Men Luo and Supreme Heavenly Thunder, he was much better this time. Although the Flying Fox Exalt won in the end, the battle was far less satisfying than he had imagined. He said regretfully, "I thought I could give you a good beating, but I didn't expect that I only hit you a few times." According to his imagination, it would be very good if Lin Feng could dodge 1 or 2 punches from beginning to end. However, in reality, Lin Feng dodged 2/3 of his attacks. Moreover, even if he hit Lin Feng sometimes, Lin Feng could reduce the damage to the minimum. There were even a few times when he just brushed past the edge of Lin Feng's arm. Lin Feng smiled and didn't reply. "Forget it, it's boring." The Flying Fox Exalt shook his head. "Go and rest first. We'll continue later." However, he wasn't interested in continuing. He would definitely change to another person next time. Lin Feng cupped his hands at everyone. "Then I'll go and rest for a while. Sorry to trouble you, seniors." Lord Black Rice Wave. "Go." Hearing this, Lin Feng flew onto Nono's back. "Nono, I'll have to trouble you again." "Boss, why are you being so polite with me?" Nono said unhappily. "Are you treating me as an outsider?" Lin Feng smiled. "All right, then I won't be polite." He sat down cross-legged and his consciousness entered Space One again. In the outside world, the Flying Fox Exalt, Supreme Heavenly Thunder, Supreme Men Luo, Supreme Xing He, and the others were all discussing. Everyone was shocked by Lin Feng's speed of improvement. They found it hard to believe. After all, it hadn't even been 2 hours, and Lin Feng had already made such great progress. If Lin Feng was given a few more days, wouldn't Lin Feng be able to completely dodge their attacks and counterattack? "We have to hurry up. If we wait until he accumulates enough battle experience, then we'll really become his sparring partners." "Supreme Xing," he said. "I'll go next. None of you fight with me." While the group of supreme martial artists outside were still arguing over who should go up first, Lin Feng once again entered the endless battle training. Boom! Bang! Pa! In Space One, Lin Feng grimaced in pain. His body didn't stop for even a moment. Simulators had many ways of attacking. Punches, palms, kicks, and so on. Not only were there many ways of attacking, but they weren't limited to attacking body parts. On the simulators, any part of their body could be used as a weapon. Fingers, fists, palms, heads, buttocks, feet, legs. Every part was a dangerous area. Coupled with the ever-changing attacking methods, it was simply impossible to guard against. Endless battles, invincible opponents, and that infinitely magnified pain caused Lin Feng to grow at an astonishing speed. Gradually, his control over his elemental energy reached a higher level. His control over his body had also reached the level of minute detail. His control over timing had also reached the level of small success. He could mobilize his elemental energy in a very short period of time and suddenly burst out with speed to dodge the simulator's attacks. He could also twist his waist, tilt his head, raise his body, cross his legs. He could use any method to increase his probability of dodging attacks. When to increase his speed and when to tilt his head, he had a good grasp of them. Although he wasn't 100% accurate, his dodging rate was increasing at an astonishing speed. In Space One, he trained for about 3 months. This time, he could dodge 1/3 of the simulator's attack. Of the remaining 2/3, he could also defend 1/3 of the attack. The number of times he was hit in the chest when he was completely unprepared was only 1/3 of the total. Now, facing the simulators, Lin Feng felt much less pressure. Although he was still on tenterhooks and nervous all the time, he wasn't constantly being beaten to death. Stop. 2 hours later, Lin Feng's consciousness exited Space One. This time, his opponent was Supremacy Galaxy. Everyone was already clear about the rules. Without any superfluous words, the two flew a distance away and started fighting. Boom. Tilt his head, dodge. Boom. Speed burst, dodge. Boom. His upper body leaned back, dodge. Boom. A fist met a fist, and they were evenly matched. Everyone around was shocked. Unfettered Prime said, "It's only been 2 hours, and he's almost on par with Xing He. 2 hours really makes a difference. Even though I've seen it with my own eyes, I still find it hard to believe." Every time Lin Feng rested for 2 hours and fought again, he would have a great improvement. It was as if he had fought for decades or even centuries while resting. At first, Lin Feng had been beaten up by Supreme Menluo and Supreme Heavenly Thunder to the point that he didn't even have the slightest bit of temper. Later on, he was able to dodge most of Supreme Flying Fox's attack. Up until now, Supreme Galaxy had already attacked hundreds of times. If one didn't count the exchange of blows between the two of them, Supreme Heavenly Thunder had only managed to hit Lin Feng once after such a long time. This innate talent was truly frightening. Of course, there were also people who didn't agree, such as Fluttering Snow Supreme. She blushed and scolded in a low voice, "What a vulgar posture!" Indeed, Lin Feng's posture when dodging most of the time wasn't that elegant, but it was undeniable that these postures were surprisingly effective. Postures aren't important. Survival is the most important thing. Obviously, most of the Supremes didn't agree with Fluttering Snow Supreme's point of view. However, they gave enough respect to the only female Supremes present, and a high-level one at that, and they didn't say this out loud. Not long after, the battle ended. Xing He panted and waved his hand. "I'm not fighting anymore. I'm exhausted." He was quite depressed. He thought that he could give Lin Feng a good beating, but he didn't expect that he could only hit Lin Feng 10 times. To Lin Feng, it didn't hurt at all. Hit him 10 times, that's not bad. Xing He comforted himself. According to Lin Feng's improvement speed, it's hard to say if the people behind him can even hit him. Lin Feng cupped his fists. "Thank you for your guidance, Senior Xing He." Xing He blushed. I didn't help you much. You should go and rest. You still have to fight with others later." Of course, he wouldn't tell Lin Feng that he wanted to use this opportunity to beat Lin Feng up. However, the result was unexpected. He didn't achieve his initial goal at all. "Okay. Lin Feng smiled as if he didn't see anything. After that, Lin Feng flew to Nono's back, sat down cross-legged, closed his eyes, and his consciousness entered space number 1. Lord Black Rice couldn't help but praise. Not bad, you're becoming more and more like a king. Begging for monthly votes, begging for monthly votes. Chapter 300. Although Lin Feng could barely maintain a stalemate in the battle with Galaxy Supreme, Lin Feng knew that he was still far from being a match for Galaxy Supreme. First of all, he could only dodge during the whole process, and there was basically no room for him to fight back. The few exchanges were when he had nowhere to run and had no choice but to take Galaxy Supreme's punches head-on. Secondly, Galaxy Supreme's every move and style was methodical. Although they were not very domineering or elegant, at least they were not as inelegant as Lin Feng's. In comparison, Galaxy Supreme's attacks were more aesthetically pleasing, while Lin Feng's dodging posture was extremely crude. If it were a real battle of life and death, Galaxy Supreme would be willing to put down his pride and attack even more fiercely, making it even more difficult for Lin Feng to dodge. Fluttering Snow Supreme's reaction was the best explanation. It's far from enough. Lin Feng had a clear understanding of his position and was not blindly happy. After entering Space 1, Lin Feng first summarized his progress and shortcomings. After a while, he said to Number 1, "Number 1, let's start the combat practice." As soon as he said that, the Phantom's figure appeared out of thin air 10 meters in front of Lin Feng. The distance seemed very far, but in fact it was nothing for experts like them. They arrived in the blink of an eye. 3, 2, 1. Battle begins. When Number 1 indicated the start of the battle, Lin Feng moved. This was an instinct that had been formed in countless battles before. When fighting with others, one could never stand still. Even if one did not take the initiative to attack, one could not deal with the enemy's attack after it was launched. In that case, it was very likely that one would be KO'd by the enemy before they could even move. Only by constantly changing one's position and making the enemy unable to figure out where one was moving and which direction one would move to next could one minimize the threat to the greatest extent. After such a long battle, Lin Feng's battle awareness had been greatly strengthened. Yes, Lin Feng had not only accumulated a lot of combat experience during the battle, but he had also developed a combat awareness. In other words, this kind of training was far more effective than the accumulation of combat experience. Combat awareness was something every cultivator had to have. The stronger one's combat awareness was, the more likely it was for them to make up for their lack of combat experience. This was because a person with a strong combat awareness would be able to make the best choice in the face of danger. This choice was instinctive and subconscious. Combat awareness was generally proportional to combat experience. The more combat experience one had, the stronger their combat awareness would be. However, there were thousands of races in the world, and there were also some strange races or races that occasionally gave birth to geniuses who were born with powerful battle instincts. These people were born to fight, and their battle prowess was extremely terrifying. However, such races and creatures were in the minority after all. 3 months later. Ha! A low and emotionless voice came out of the Sim's mouth. Punch after punch, the barrage of attacks didn't give Lin Feng the slightest chance to catch his breath. However, Lin Feng was able to dodge the dense, fast, and accurate attacks with ease. It was very difficult for the Sim's attacks to hit Lin Feng. Although Lin Feng wasn't able to dodge all of the attacks, he was able to dodge most of them. He would only be hit once in a while. Blazing Sun Supreme, it's your turn this time. Supreme Xing, he chuckled and said to an old man beside him, "Weren't you laughing at me just now? This time, you will personally go on stage. Let's see if you can gain any advantage over Lin Feng." Supreme Blazing Sun wasn't afraid at all. "Fine, let's go." He flew several dozen feet away and said to Lin Feng, come, Linfeng. Linfeng quickly flew over and cupped his fists. I'll have to trouble Senior. Let's not talk nonsense. Let's begin. Supreme Blazing Sun seemed to be in a hurry to test the results of Linfeng's training. Linfeng smiled. Okay. Soon, the battle between the two began. It had to be said that Supreme Blazing Sun's battle experience was indeed good. He was much more experienced than Supreme Xing He and was very close to Supreme Flying Fox's level. However, the current Linfeng had undergone earth-shattering changes compared to a few hours ago. Supreme Blazing Sun attacked with all his might. Linfeng, on the other hand, dodged leisurely as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. He was skillful and relaxed, as if he was strolling in his own backyard. Even when Supreme Blazing Sun had exhausted half of his origin energy, he still couldn't touch a corner of Linfeng's clothes. After half an incense stick's time, Supreme Blazing Sun stopped and said, "I'm not fighting anymore. It's too depressing. After fighting for so long, I haven't hit even once. I've exhausted more than half of my origin energy. I can't fight anymore." He looked at Linfeng and said, "Congratulations, I'm no longer your opponent just by relying on my origin energy. If you use the law of Earth." Perhaps because he thought that Linfeng could instantly kill an initial stage Supreme with the law of Earth, Supreme Blazing Sun decisively shut his mouth and didn't say anything else. Everyone looked at each other with strange expressions. Supreme Xing He was dumbfounded. What kind of battle is this? Linfeng, this brat, didn't even make a move, yet he's already exhausted half of Supreme Blazing Sun's origin energy. Attacking with all his strength while dodging with all his strength, this kind of battle was really rare. Linfeng, why aren't you attacking? Unfettered Sovereign asked curiously. Linfeng was slightly embarrassed. Because my attacks are too weak. Unless Senior Blazing Sun takes the initiative to fight me head-on, I can't hit him at all. Such an explanation was really amazing. Everyone almost fell over. They thought that Linfeng didn't attack because he wanted to leave some face for Supreme Blazing Sunday. They didn't think that it was actually because of this reason. Lord Black Rice praised, "Learn how to take a beating first before you can learn how to hit others." Not bad. Linfeng felt even more embarrassed. How could he have thought like that? He had no other choice because he had no other choice but to dodge the simulated human's attacks. However, he didn't need to explain too much at this time. If it was a misunderstanding, then so be it. It didn't affect him much anyway. Not long after, Linfeng flew back to Nono's back and his consciousness entered Space One again. After about 2 months of battle in Space One, Linfeng could finally completely dodge the simulated human's attack. No matter what method or position the simulated human attacked, Linfeng could easily dodge them. Moreover, Linfeng's posture also slowly became more standard. He no longer needed to use those inelegant postures to dodge. Although it wasn't very elegant, at least it wasn't unsightly. From being completely suppressed to dodging with ease, Linfeng's improvement was simply unimaginable. It should be known that the simulated human's attacks were even stronger than Supreme Meng Luo's and Supreme Tianlei's. Linfeng could still calmly dodge the simulated human's all-out attack. This meant that most mid-level Supremes were no longer a threat to him. At this moment, Linfeng suddenly felt that this was actually not bad. Before learning how to attack, I must first learn how to protect my own life. Linfeng came to a realization. In that case, no matter what kind of battle we are in, we will be undefeatable. After dodging the simulated human's attack again, a smile appeared on Linfeng's face. After being attacked by you for so long, now it's my turn to fight back. Clenching his hand into a fist, Linfeng also threw a punch at the simulated human's charging figure. Whoosh! Whoosh! Almost at the same time, Linfeng and the simulated human both dodged each other's attacks. Linfeng wasn't discouraged at all. This is just the beginning. This time, without waiting for the simulated human to attack, Linfeng took the initiative to rush over. Another month passed. Now, Lin Feng could easily dodge the simulated human's every attack, and Lin Feng's attacks could occasionally hit the simulated human. There was a subtle shift in the position between the two. This time, Lin Feng had the advantage, and the simulated human was at a disadvantage. After endless pain and torture, Lin Feng's efforts finally paid off. About 2 hours later, a new battle in the outside world was about to begin again. When Lin Feng flew to the front of a group of supreme martial artists, they had already made arrangements. Now, one person sparring with you is no longer of much use. This time, both of us will go together. Is that okay, Lin Feng? An elementary-level supreme martial artist pointed to his companion beside him and asked Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't think much and nodded readily. Okay. Thus, the two elementary-level supreme martial artists rushed toward Lin Feng excitedly. Half an hour later, the two elementary-level supreme martial artists were bruised and swollen. They grimaced and had the urge to cry. Two elementary-level supreme martial artists lost together? The group of supreme martial artists stared at Lin Feng in a daze. It seemed that no one could stop Lin Feng's rise. 2 hours later, Lin Feng opened his eyes and recovered. This time, the four of us will go together. A certain elementary-level supreme martial artist looked at Lin Feng with a serious expression. In the name of improving Lin Feng's training effect, Lin Feng thought for a while and agreed. Thus, half an hour later, the four elementary-level supreme martial artists were covered in injuries and said that they didn't want to fight with Lin Feng ever again. Lin Feng spread out his palms innocently, feeling rather helpless. He had already restrained himself as much as possible, but he didn't expect the four supreme martial artists to be so weak. He couldn't remember how many times he had trained in Space No. 1, but now, he could already completely abuse the simulated human in Space No. 1. Although he couldn't hit the simulated human every time, most of his attacks could hit the simulated human. At the same time, he could also dodge the simulated human's attacks 100% of the time. It could be said that the positions between him and the simulated human had been swapped. Since he was able to completely crush the simulation, it meant that he could even defeat most mid-level supremes without using the law of Earth and with the same level of elemental energy. Therefore, the four elementary-level supreme martial artists were still no match for him. I'll go and rest for a while. Lin Feng didn't wait for anyone to speak this time and flew onto Nono's back, so as to avoid awkwardness. Outside, Unfettered Supremacy muttered, "Looks like 8 elementary-level supreme martial artists will have to go together next time." Fluttering Snow's Supremacy said, "Grandpa, I'm afraid 8 is far from enough. Why don't we let all the elementary-level supreme martial artists besiege Lin Feng?" Unfettered Supremacy probed. Wouldn't 25 elementary-level supreme martial artists be too many? If he didn't use the law of Earth and suppressed his elemental energy to the level of elementary-level supreme martial artists, he would have to spend some effort to win. And Lin Feng was only an elementary-level supreme martial artist. Could he really deal with 25 elementary-level supreme martial artists? No one knew if Lin Feng could do it, but they were looking forward to it. Finally, Lord Black Rice made the final decision. "All right, let's do it this way. Later, all 25 of you can come together. We have to create some pressure for Lin Feng. Otherwise, I'm afraid this kid's tail will go up to the sky." He was worried that after winning so many battles, Lin Feng would become arrogant and forget himself. Therefore, he wanted to take this opportunity to give him a beating. P.S. The third update is available. Requesting monthly votes. Chapter 301. Lin Feng, who had no idea that he was about to be tricked, was still summarizing his gains in Space One. After a while, he said to Space One, "All right, we can begin. 3, 2, 1. Battle begins." Lin Feng and the simulation began a new round of battle. Now, what he pursued was not only to dodge the simulation's attacks and hit it with 100% accuracy, but also to minimize the consumption of elemental energy for each dodge and attack. Although he could ignore the consumption of elemental energy in Space One, in the outside world, his elemental energy was limited. When he faced the attacks of 4 elementary-level supreme martial artists at the same time, he gradually realized this problem. Due to his limited elemental energy, he had to shorten the duration of the battle and try to defeat his enemies before his elemental energy was depleted. He was only an elementary-level supreme martial artist, so he was naturally limited by his elemental energy. If he was an advanced supreme martial artist, or even a supreme martial artist, he would naturally not be so concerned about the consumption of elemental energy. The stronger the expert, the more they would pay attention to the use of laws, and the usage of elemental energy would be secondary. At the level of Earth Sage, one could almost ignore the consumption of elemental energy. At this level of battle, one's comprehension of laws and the usage of laws were the most important. If one's laws were weak, one would lose. If one's laws were strong, one would win. The influence of elemental energy was negligible. However, Lin Feng was still very far away from the Earth Sage level, so he had to learn how to maximize the effect with the least amount of elemental energy. Huff! Lin Feng shouted softly. His body tilted slightly at the most opportune moment, and at the same time, his right hand clenched into a fist and punched out. Bang! The android was sent flying by the punch. However, as it was flying, the android suddenly came to a stop and immediately charged back. Lin Feng frowned. No, that punch just now could have been faster and used less elemental energy. When the simulation rushed in front of him and punched out, Lin Feng lowered his head and easily dodged the attack. Then, he kicked the simulation in the chest and sent it flying again. However, Lin Feng was still not satisfied. This kick was too fast. It should have been slower. The accumulated force would have been greater, and I wouldn't have to use so much elemental energy to accelerate it. Boom! No, the head has a relatively strong defense but is also relatively weak. I should divide my elemental energy into 2 parts, one to protect myself and the other to attack. Just now, the 2 portions of elemental energy did not have the desired effect. It was a huge waste. Pah! This palm still won't do. Clenching 5 fingers is different from clenching a fist. If it's a fist, the elemental energy should cover the surface of the fist, forming a net. If the 5 fingers are clenched together, whether it's a slap or a jab, the usage of elemental energy is different. Lin Feng corrected his attacks time and time again, and his usage of essence energy rose to another level. He studied without any distractions, constantly repeating, correcting, repeating, correcting, until he was satisfied. He learned all of the simulator's various attack methods and applied them flexibly. In the end, he actually modified and deepened the simulator's attack foundation, increasing his attack power and making it easier for him to hit his target. At the same time, the yuan energy he consumed was also reduced by several times. The current Lin Feng, whether it was the usage of elemental energy, dodging, attacking postures, or methods, had all reached the level of initial success. He could reduce the consumption of his elemental energy as much as possible, and he could also use any part of his body as a weapon to attack. He could also use all kinds of strange methods to avoid the enemy's attack. Other than defense, he had almost no weaknesses. The reason why he said, besides defense, was because he hadn't found a good way to increase his defense for the time being. Although his usage of origin energy had improved by a level during this period of time, and his control of his body had also reached the level of minute detail, the increase in his defense was extremely limited. Actually, this could not be blamed on him. Every time he was hit by the simulator, he would be in so much pain that he wanted to die. Therefore, he had an instinctive fear of being attacked. From the beginning, he directly studied how to dodge the attack, not how to reduce the damage after being hit. It should be about time. Linfeng felt that the low-level simulator was no longer of much help to him. At this moment, someone outside called out to Linfeng. He smiled lightly. What a coincidence. Linfeng. Lord Black Rice looked at Linfeng and said seriously, I have to admit that your combat talent is very high. In such a short time, you have actually grown to the point where you can easily defeat 4 primary-level supreme martial artists. However, your purpose of fighting with them is to increase your combat experience, not just to fight. With your current strength, I'm afraid that 4, 5, or even 8 or 10 supreme martial artists will not be able to cause you much pressure. After a pause, he continued, Therefore, this time, I have decided to let all the primary-level supreme martial artists besiege you. To force out your potential to the greatest extent possible. All primary-level supreme martial artists? Linfeng could not help but look at Supreme Martial Artist Xing He, Supreme Martial Artist Flying Fox, and the others. 25 primary-level supreme martial artists. The group of primary-level supreme martial artists, who were swept by Linfeng's gaze, all blushed and looked slightly embarrassed. They had no choice. If they did not do so, they were sure that even if the 8 supreme martial artists attacked together, they would only be defeated. If this went on, they would only be beaten up from the beginning to the end. If that was really the case, then it would be too difficult for them to be sparring partners. After thinking for a while, Linfeng said, Okay, I agree. He also wanted to take this opportunity to test the results of his efforts in Space Number 1. 25 veteran primary-level supreme martial artists seemed to be a lot, but at most, it was equivalent to 3 to 5 mid-level supreme martial artists. Since he could completely defeat the simulation, there was a high chance that he could win against 25 veteran primary-level supreme martial artists. When everyone was ready, Lord Black Rice nodded to everyone. Let's begin. Immediately, the battle began. 25 primary-level supreme martial artists surrounded Linfeng in the center and closed in at the same time, blocking Linfeng's escape route. Go! Everyone suddenly increased their speed. 25 afterimages overlapped each other, making it impossible to tell whether they were afterimages or real bodies. This scene was dazzling. Those below the Supreme Being level, even ninth-order powerhouses, were unable to distinguish between the afterimages and the real bodies. Whoosh! Linfeng's figure moved erratically, changing his position from time to time. Before the group of people rushed to him, he took the initiative to rush to the side. Whoosh! Boom! His upper body tilted 45 degrees to the right, avoiding the attack of the nearest supreme martial artist. His right hand clenched into a fist and hit the opponent's armpit. At the same time, he took a step to the right, turned his body sideways, and directly hit the chest of a primary-level supreme martial artist with his back. In an instant, 2 supreme martial artists were sent flying. After clearing some space, Linfeng's expression did not change at all. He calmly turned in a circle. As he turned, he moved his feet and dodged several attacks in succession. As soon as he stood still, he kicked out and hit the knee of another supreme martial artist, sending him flying and spinning in midair. From the beginning to the end, Linfeng did not give the supreme martial artists a chance to surround him. Instead, he chose to fight one-on-one, as if he was chopping vegetables, quickly clearing them out. This was because he knew that once all the supreme martial artists surrounded him and gathered together, he would have no space to dodge. Moreover, 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. He would definitely lose. Brilliant! The carefree Supreme clenched his fists. This kid's timing is too accurate. His attack methods are also endless. It's as if every part of his body can be used to attack. Every part of his body is extremely dangerous and impossible to guard against. Moreover, every time he attacks, he leaves room for himself to dodge the other opponent's attack. However, the cleverest thing about this kid is that he will first send the closest and most threatening opponent flying to clear out the position and indirectly disintegrate the encirclement. This is beneficial to the following battle. If not for the fact that he couldn't bring himself to speak, he would have rushed over to fight Lin Feng. This kid is making my hands a little itchy. The carefree Supreme praised. Supreme Martial Artists, Supreme Martial Artist Meng Luo, Supreme Martial Artist Heavenly Thunder, and the other mid-level Supreme Martial Artists had no choice but to accept this fact that made them feel deeply helpless. This guy has already surpassed us in terms of combat experience. They admitted that they could not fight back so calmly under the siege of 25 primary-level Supreme Martial Artists. Supreme Martial Artist Meng Luo took a deep breath. A hint of surprise flashed across his face. The last time I fought with him, it wasn't even 20 hours, right? In less than 20 hours, his opponent, who had been completely oppressed by him from beginning to end, had grown to a height that made him feel powerless. Even though he was unwilling to accept this result, he had to admit that he had really been surpassed. Supreme Martial Artist Heavenly Thunder's mouth twitched. Am I dreaming? In less than 20 hours, he had already surpassed their 1,000 years of accumulation. He really wanted to curse the heavens for being unfair. Boom! 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 From time to time, sounds of collision could be heard in the distance. Figures flew out one after another. After flying for a distance, they suddenly stabilized themselves and shouted, "Again!" Then, they once again rushed to the center of the battle. Time flew by quickly. The 25 Supreme Martial Artists were all covered in injuries. Every one of them tried their best to get close to and attack Lin Feng, but none of them could do it. Even if they occasionally attacked Lin Feng, they were forcibly blocked by Lin Feng's fist. Moreover, he even forced them to retreat a few feet and successfully widened the distance between them. As time went by, the primary-level Supreme Martial Artists, who were sent flying by Lin Feng, started to withdraw from the battle. It was not that they did not want to continue, but that they had used up most of their essence force and no longer had the strength to continue. 1, 2, 3 more and more primary-level Supreme Martial Artists lost their battle power. In the end, only Supreme Martial Artists, such as Flying Fox Supreme and Supreme Martial Artist Xing, he were still holding on. The few remaining Supreme Martial Artists were no longer a threat to Lin Feng. At this moment, Lin Feng's speed suddenly exploded. Ha! He rushed forward. First, he sent Supreme Martial Artist Xing, he flying with a punch. Then, he turned sideways and sent Supreme Martial Artist Blazing Sun flying with a kick. Then, he raised his body and headbutt another primary-level Supreme Martial Artist behind him. His body turned 180 degrees and his knee landed on Supreme Martial Artist Flying Fox's chest. 4 Supreme Martial Artists were eliminated in a breath's time. 1 primary-level Supreme Martial Artist against 25 primary-level Supreme Martial Artists. All 25 primary-level Supreme Martial Artists were eliminated without exception. F***CK. 25 primary-level Supreme Martial Artists were all defeated. Supreme Martial Artist Tianlei could not help but curse to vent the shock in his heart. Supreme Martial Artist Xiaoyao, Supreme Martial Artist Fluttering Snow, Supreme Martial Artist Men Luo, and the others were also very surprised. Especially Lin Feng's last set of moves that sent 4 primary-level Supreme Martial Artists flying. So what if there were 25 primary-level Supreme Martial Artists? Weren't they all defeated by me? Lin Feng couldn't help but feel a surge of pride in his heart. P.S. The 4th update is here. Begging for votes, begging for votes, begging for votes. Chapter 302. After the battle, Lin Feng flew back to Nono's back, and his consciousness entered space number 1. Number 1, is there any way to train my defense? Lin Feng asked calmly. Although he had defeated 25 primary-level supreme martial artists, Lin Feng was still not satisfied with his performance just now. He could perform better. Moreover, he also realized his weakness, which was that his defense was not strong enough. In the course of the battle, he had been hit several times, and each time, he had almost fallen into a dangerous situation. If he had not relied on his powerful dodging ability to forcefully turn the situation around, the final result would have been different. He realized that just dodging was not enough. If he had an excellent defense method, coupled with the 3-pattern spiritual armor, then he would really have nothing to fear. Number 1 said, "There is, but..." It was a little hesitant. "Just say it." Lin Feng roughly guessed that maybe this method was more cruel than the battle between him and the simulators, and it was not something that ordinary people could endure. That was why Number 1 was so hesitant. However, Lin Feng had no other choice. If he wanted to improve his combat ability in the shortest time possible, he would have to pay more. After receiving Lin Feng's order, Number 1 did not hesitate anymore. Actually, the method is very simple. When the simulators attack Master, as long as Master's dodging ability and attacking ability are limited, and Master withstands the simulator's attacks with his body, Master will be able to comprehend the true meaning of defense by himself after many times. The defense method that Master comes up with himself is the most suitable defense method for Master, and the effect will also be the best. Lin Feng hesitated. Take a beating? Was this also a kind of training? Moreover, his sense of pain was infinitely magnified. Every time he was hit by the simulators, he was in so much pain that every cell in his body trembled. When he first fought with the simulators, Lin Feng had a taste of that feeling. Although he had slowly passed that stage, Lin Feng had a deep impression of that feeling, and he would never forget it. Even just thinking about that kind of pain made Lin Feng's soul tremble. After a long silence, Lin Feng finally nodded heavily. Okay, let's do it. In order to improve his strength, he would do it. Outside, Lord Blackrice, Unfettered Exalt, Snowflake Exalt, and the others quickly flew towards the Azure Wood continent. Although Nono was an initial stage autarch, his maximum speed was above that of mid-stage autarchs like Autarch Menlo and Autarch Heavenly Thunder. In fact, he was even close to Autarch Snowdrift. The speed he displayed made everyone look at him in a new light. At the same time, everyone was even more curious about Nono. What kind of demonic beast is it? No matter how many times they tried to recall, they still couldn't find any flying beast that was as beautiful as Nono, nor could they find any beast that could reach the speed of a high-level Supreme Being at the beginner level of Supreme Being. Even its speed is so terrifying, its attack and defense shouldn't be too bad, right? They thought to themselves. Such an outcome was another blow to everyone's hearts. They all smiled bitterly. This Lin Feng, it's fine that he's so abnormal, but even his contracted demon beast is abnormal. Through Nono's tricks, they even suspected that this overly beautiful demonic beast's battle prowess might even surpass Lin Feng's own. Sure enough, a demonic beast suits a person like him. They sighed in their hearts. With complicated thoughts, they went further and further away from the Eternal Continent, and the distance between them and the Azure Wood Continent was also quickly shortening. Azure Wood Continent, Zhao Empire's imperial capital. The people in the city were anxious, while the soldiers outside the city were ready to set out. The atmosphere in the city was tense and oppressive, making it hard for people to breathe. On the city wall, Zhao Empire's Emperor Zhao Duo, Di Shi Zhongwei, the 3 guardian supreme beings of the imperial family, and 2 veteran supreme beings who were invited to fight the enemy together stood side by side. Their expressions were grave and solemn, and no one spoke. Tiny drops of sweat condensed on Zhao Duo's head, but he didn't wipe them off. Instead, he said in a low voice, "There are more than 40 supreme beings in total, including 2 high-level Supreme Beings, 9 mid-stage Supreme Beings, and 32 initial-stage Supreme Beings. After the bloody battle in the Han Dynasty, the remaining 39 Supreme Beings are unharmed. Only 4 initial-stage Supreme Beings have fallen. According to our scouts, the enemy will reach the Zhao Empire by nightfall. Zhong Wei said solemnly. The one in charge of the attack is one of the 2 high-level Supreme Beings, the Crafting School's Eternal Velocity. Other than that, there are 4 mid-stage Supreme Beings and 12 initial-stage Supreme Beings. A total of 17 Supreme Beings were coming with great momentum. Hearing this, Zhao Duo turned to the 3 guardian Supreme Beings of the Imperial family and asked, Elder Mu, are you confident in delaying Eternal Velocity? Elder Mu shook his head. Even with the 3-striped spiritual armor, I'm still no match for Eternal Velocity. Escaping won't be difficult, but delaying Eternal Velocity will be impossible. The difference between a high-level Supreme Being and a mid-stage Supreme Being wasn't something a 3-striped spiritual armor could make up for. The armor could at most allow him to escape from a high-level Supreme Being, or just barely prevent him from being defeated. But as time passed, the result wouldn't change. 1 Eternal Velocity was enough to render them helpless. If the other Supreme Beings joined the fray, the result would be obvious. Moreover, Eternal Velocity was a high-level Supreme Being of the Crafting School. He also had a 3-striped spiritual armor. In this regard, the Imperial family of Zhao was at a disadvantage. At this time, a mysterious man wearing a steel mask appeared on the left side of the wall. He was tall and sturdy and looked to be at least 2.5 meters tall. His hands rested on the hilt of his saber as he stared into the distance. No one knew who this mysterious man was, and no one knew how he appeared. Leave Eternal Velocity to me. The man didn't even turn his head. You only need to deal with the other Supreme Beings. You? Zhong Wei frowned. The man's identity was mysterious, and his voice was too young. He sounded like a child who hadn't grown up yet. Elder Mu transmitted, This man is not simple. Perhaps he really does have the ability to delay Eternal Velocity. Zhao Duo and the other's eyes lit up. Zhao Duo turned around, cupped his fists and asked, Sir, may I know your name? The man with the iron mask glanced at Zhao Duo and then looked away. He said, All you need to know is that I am from the Zhao Kingdom. I do not want the Zhao Kingdom to fall into the hands of foreign enemies. That is enough. You don't need to know anything else. Zhao Duo didn't change his expression. Then, sir, are you sure you can delay Eternal Velocity? I'm not sure. The man with the iron mask didn't beat around the bush. I can only promise you that I will do my best. After a while, Zhao Duo gazed at the man with the iron mask and said, Very well. I will have to trouble you later, sir. At this point, they had to make every possible effort. If this mysterious man really was a supreme being from the enemy's side, then Zhao Duo would have to accept his fate. The sun rose over their heads and slowly set to the west. As evening approached, the atmosphere inside and outside the city became more and more oppressive. The lively people fell silent. The bleak wind carried with it an indistinct murderous aura. A great battle was about to begin. The time of life and death had arrived. Whoosh, whoosh, it wasn't even evening yet, but there were already over a dozen people on the horizon. They were approaching the city at a fast speed. They're here. Zhao Duo's breathing became heavier. They're half an hour faster than expected. Everyone on the city wall looked solemn. Outside the city, 300,000 elite soldiers, the most elite team of the Berserker Legion, were lined up. Every one of them was holding their weapons. They looked resolute and determined. The battlefield was the home of a soldier. Protecting the country was the mission of a soldier. At this moment, there was a mixture of solemnity and grandeur that was telling an epic story. Ha ha ha! There came a burst of hearty laughter. It was Eternal Velocity, the only advanced supreme being of the crafting school. I did not expect that the Zhao kingdom would give us so much face. They have prepared such a formation to welcome us. The man was the first to speak. He was indeed an advanced supreme being. His aura was strong. Just one sentence was enough to stun everyone. Zhao Duo's hands trembled, but he forced himself to calm down. He could not panic. If he did, no one would be able to control the situation. He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He took a step forward and said with a calm smile, "Supreme Constant Speed's reputation has shaken the world. How could I possibly neglect you?" However, no one noticed that his hands were trembling slightly behind his back. As soon as he finished speaking, the 17 people were already close to the city wall. They stopped in the sky outside the city. The leader was a middle-aged man. He was 7 feet and 2 inches tall. He looked powerful. His long hair was tied behind his back. His beard was about 2 inches long. He was wearing a mink coat and holding a heavy saber in his hand. He looked very imposing. Even though they were enemies, Zhao Duo could not help but admit that Supreme Hing Speed was indeed a peerless hero. "Young Emperor, you are quite courageous. Ever since I came to the Greenwood continent, I've attacked and ambushed, defeating over a dozen powers. However, those fellows were mostly people who deceived the world. The moment they encountered me, they all wet their pants. Young Emperor, you are much stronger than them." Zhao Duo smiled. "Thank you for your praise, Senior. However, I am the ruler of Zhao. I represent the people of Zhao. If I show weakness, I will not be the only one who will lose face." "Good." Supreme Eternal Velocity cheered loudly and praised, "Little Emperor, I really admire you." He paused. "Young Emperor, if you are willing to submit to the crafting school and obey their orders, I can promise not to harm you." "My lord." Several supreme martial artists behind him immediately shouted in a low voice. "Silence." Eternal Velocity frowned. "I don't need you to interfere with my business." The Supremes shut their mouths, not daring to say anything. Eternal Velocity looked at Zhao Duo again. "How about it, young Emperor? I am very sincere. I would rather be the ruler of a fallen nation than the ruler of slaves." Zhao Duo calmly replied. He didn't answer Eternal Velocity's question directly, but his meaning was clear. Eternal Velocity wasn't angry. Instead, he laughed again. "Good. Young Emperor, I rarely admire anyone in my life, but I admire you very much. If it weren't for the fact that we are on different sides, I would really like to be friends with you." There was a trace of regret in his eyes. Then he straightened his face. "If there is no other way, then let's fight. P.S. Begging for monthly votes, begging for monthly votes, begging for monthly votes." Chapter 303. When Supreme Hing Speed said this, everyone couldn't help but feel nervous. No one doubted Supreme Hing Speed's strength. The crushing defeat of the Han Dynasty's royal family and the famous forces in the Han Dynasty had already proved this point. His reputation was built on the blood and lives of countless people. The number of experts who died in his hands was innumerable. "Let's fight." Zhao Duo took a deep breath. Now that things have come to this, there's no turning back. Elder Mu and the others looked at each other, then held their weapons and flew into the sky. This battle was unavoidable. There was no point in saying anything more. In the city, countless figures appeared in the tall buildings. They were either on the balconies or near the windows, silently watching. Although the outcome was already decided, they still hoped for a miracle. Zhao Duo stared at the 17 Supreme Exalt Realm experts in the distance, and he spoke in a firm tone. "All those years ago, the Ancestor and a group of Supreme Exalt Realm seniors swept through the world with peerlessly domineering might. Even if I perish here today, I'm unwilling to bring shame to my seniors. I'm here to repay someone's debt." The iron-masked man's voice was cold. Whether or not we can protect Zhao in the end, he doesn't owe you anything. What? Zhao Duo was stunned. Just as he was about to ask, the iron-masked man had already flown into the sky. He opened his mouth, but swallowed the rest of his words. Only a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. What did the iron-masked man mean? However, he didn't have much time to think. Both sides had sent out their experts, and the battle was about to start. There were 17 supreme experts on the other side. 12 of them were early-stage supreme experts, 4 were mid-stage supreme experts, and Supreme Hing Speed was a high-level supreme expert. On Zhao Duo's side, there were only 3 mid-stage supreme experts, 2 early-stage supreme experts, and a mysterious man whose origin and cultivation were unknown. In terms of weapons, they were about the same. In terms of armor, both Supreme Hing Speed and Elder Mu had a 3-striped spiritual armor. The difference in strength was huge. Teacher, can we win? Zhao Duo looked at the sky, motionless. Zhong Wei turned to look at Zhao Duo and comforted him. Maybe a miracle will happen. Zhao Duo's mouth twitched. A miracle? That's right. The difference in strength is too great. Only a miracle will allow us to win. He said the words that Zhong Wei did not say. After a long silence, there was a hint of tiredness in his voice. Teacher, I'm very tired. The country of Zhao was adjacent to the demonic beast forest. The land in the northwest was barren, and there were many demonic beasts in the south. This country had never been truly peaceful. Ever since he took office, Zhao Duo had been working hard to ensure that every citizen in the empire had food to eat and that they were free from the threat of demon beasts. His nerves were stretched taut all the time, and he had never relaxed. For more than 20 years, he had never had a day of ease, and now they were facing the calamity of their nation's destruction. He was truly tired and could not hold on much longer. Zhong Wei looked at Zhao Duo and sighed inwardly. This child has suffered. A teacher for a day, a father for life. In his eyes, Zhao Duo was both the monarch and his own child. Seeing Zhao Duo so exhausted, his heart ached. Your opponent is me. The iron-masked man flew into the skies, directly facing Autarch Constant Speed. Supreme Eternal Speed was surprised at first, but then he shook his head and said with a smile, Kid, your talent is really shocking. However, you're just a mid-level Supreme Being. Are you sure you want to fight me? Mid-level Supreme Being? Everyone on Zhao's side looked at the iron-masked man in surprise. They did not expect his cultivation to be so high. However, in the current situation, even a mid-level Supreme Being would not be able to change the situation. Zhao Duo's last hope was also shattered. I've lost. There won't be any more miracles. Zhong Wei wanted to persuade him, but he did not know where to start. We'll only know who wins and who loses after we fight. The iron-masked man did not back down. His voice was cold and emotionless from beginning to end. There's no point in talking anymore. Let's fight. I didn't expect Zhao to have another outstanding talent other than the young emperor of Zhao. Supreme Eternal Speed did not look down on the iron-masked man. Instead, he was very respectful. Since you insist, I'll fulfill your request. Fight! With a single word, his aura suddenly erupted. The soldiers below were suffocated by this aura. On the city wall, Zhao Duo and the others were also sweating profusely, but none of them backed down. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers shouted, Kill! The murderous aura forcibly broke through Supreme Eternal Speed's aura and soared into the sky. It was like a rainbow piercing through the sun. Everyone could not help but cheer for it. Supreme Eternal Speed charged directly at the iron-masked man. He swept across the sky, leaving behind afterimages and creating sonic booms. The iron-masked man's expression was solemn. He did not back down. Instead, he charged forward to meet Supreme Eternal Speed. The battle began. The rest of the Supreme Beings from both sides also charged at each other. However, Elder Mu's group of 5 was surrounded by 16 supreme beings. Fortunately, Elder Mu had the 3 lines spiritual armor. During the battle, he did not have to worry too much about defense. Even if he was hit by several supreme beings, he would only be lightly injured at most. Apart from mid-level supreme beings who cultivated the 7 strongest laws, almost no one below the high-level supreme beings could threaten his life. However, he did not dare to be too careless. After all, one supreme being might not be able to hurt him, but a group of supreme beings could still threaten his life. The sky slowly darkened. The sun struggled at the edge of the horizon. Everyone in the sky left long shadows on the ground. Clang! 2 heavy sabers collided. Intense sparks lit up the sky. Zzz! Countless sparks flew as the sabers clashed. An ear-piercing sound entered everyone's ears. Supreme Eternal Speed and the iron-masked man both retreated several feet. Good lad. I underestimated you. Supreme Eternal Speed said. A mere mid-level supreme being is able to use the laws and Yuanli to such an extent. It is indeed rare to see someone who can rival a high-level supreme being. What's even more unexpected is that you have the 3 lines spiritual armor. He looked at the iron-masked man's body that was faintly emitting a strange light. It seems that it will take some effort to defeat you. The iron-masked man stared at Eternal Speed in silence, not saying a word. Supreme Eternal Speed laughed loudly. Ha! Ha! Again. He originally thought that this battle would be easy and would end in an instant. He did not expect this iron-masked man to be so difficult to deal with. If he did not show his true strength, he might not be able to end the battle in a short time. However, he was not depressed at all. Instead, he was very excited. It was rare to find such a genius opponent. It was also a kind of luck to be able to fight with him. That old man has the 3 lines spiritual armor. He actually used the 3 lines spiritual armor to block attacks for others. This old man is really despicable. Attack. Attack those 2 early-level supreme beings. Break through their weak points. It was finally time for Elder Mu's 3 lines spiritual armor to show its effect. For a moment, both sides were in a deadlock. No one could do anything to the other. However, the supreme beings of the Eternal Continent had a certain advantage. After all, they had the advantage in numbers and the initiative. On the other hand, Elder Mu's side only had 5 people. They were in a passive defensive position. The moment they showed any weakness, they would be instantly defeated by the enemy. Although he had the 3 lines spiritual armor and had blocked attacks for his teammates many times, his Yuanli was limited. There would be a time when it would be exhausted. Once his Yuanli was exhausted, the 5 of them would die. Continue. Exhaust his Yuanli. The supreme beings of the Eternal Continent were no fools. They quickly thought of a way and put it into action. Thus, Elder Mu's Yuanli began to be exhausted at an alarming rate. Whether it was Elder Mu's side or the iron-masked man's side, they were at an absolute disadvantage. Although the iron-masked man was barely able to stall Eternal Speed, he was gradually losing strength. Let the soldiers retreat. Zhao Duo took a deep breath and gave the order. Then, he fixed his gaze on the iron-masked man and murmured, "Although the final result cannot be changed, I still have to thank you." As time passed, the iron-masked man, Elder Mu, and the others gradually showed signs of defeat. Although they were not defeated, they were not far from it. Zhao Duo took one last look behind him. His eyes were filled with infatuation. What a majestic city! But it was about to fall into the hands of the enemy. What awaited this city was a merciless massacre. All the people who were loyal to the Zhao country would be killed. He did not want to think about how much blood this city would be stained with after they died. Slowly retracting his gaze, Zhao Duo took a deep breath and shouted to the sky, "Stop!" The supreme beings of the Eternal Continent and the Zhao country gave him face. They stopped and retreated. They were wary of each other and waited for Zhao Duo to speak. Mr. Iron Mask, I don't know who you are. But I thank you for standing up for us in such a dangerous time. Zhao Duo bowed to the iron-masked man in the sky. After straightening his body, he continued, If there is a next life, I will repay your kindness. You should go. There is no point in continuing this battle. I don't want you to lose your life for this. The iron-masked man frowned and looked at Zhao Duo sharply. Before the iron-masked man could speak, Zhao Duo said to Elder Mu and the others, Elder Mu, I am sorry. I have disappointed you. Then, he bowed to Elder Mu and the others. Elder Mu and the others were silent. After that, he looked at the soldiers below the city slowly. Soldiers, you are the heroes of the Zhao country, the protectors. For many years, it was because of you that the people of the Zhao country could live a peaceful and happy life, free from the attacks of the demonic beasts. You are the greatest people of the Zhao country. I thank you. He bowed to the soldiers. The soldiers choked silently and tears flowed down their cheeks. Finally, he looked around and laughed. The people are the good people of the Zhao country. The soldiers are the good soldiers of the Zhao country. The officials are the good officials of the Zhao country. I am proud of all of you. But I am not a good emperor. I did not completely solve the demonic beast's problem. I did not solve the problems of the people of the Zhao country. I made all the officials suffer with me. I am ashamed to face my ancestors, the people, the soldiers, and the officials. His eyes were filled with tears and his voice was choked. You are not the officials of a fallen country, not the people of a fallen country, not the soldiers of a fallen country, but I am the emperor of a fallen country. So, I am willing to die to atone for my sins. I will bear all the sins alone. You just need to submit to the weapon refining sect. I believe that Hing Su is a hero and will not kill the innocent. Zhong Wei's eyes were filled with tears. Elder Mu and the others were also very depressed. The soldiers below were speechless, begging for votes, weapon. Chapter 304. Your Majesty! Zhong Wei cried out with tears in his eyes. Your Majesty! All the soldiers kneeled on the ground with one knee, while their solemn and stirring voices swept across the area. Your Majesty! Elder Mu and the others all had complicated expressions on their faces. Your Majesty! The citizens and officials all fell to their knees and cried out in grief. On the city walls, that proud and lonely figure stood alone, and he was stubborn and unyielding. Supremacy Eternal Speed's eyes flashed as he watched this scene. What a manly man! Quite a few of the autarchs from the Eternal Lands fell silent. Humans were not plants. How could they be emotionless? But in the face of this young emperor, they couldn't stop the march of war. I promise that as long as the citizens of Zhao are willing to submit and obey the orders of the crafting school, I will not kill a single one of you. Eternal Speed solemnly made his promise to Zhao Duo. I swear in the name of Eternal Speed that if I violate this oath, may the heavens strike me down and the gods abandon me. Thank you, Zhao Duo said. Elder Mu snorted. I, Mu Qing, am a citizen of Zhao in life and a ghost in death. I am a citizen of Zhao in life and a ghost in death. The soldiers all cried out in unison, tears streaming down their faces. It's not that I want to kill, it's that I have no choice. Eternal Speed said, Zhao is the most united empire I've ever seen. If not for the fact that we're on different sides, I really wouldn't want to destroy it. But, young Emperor, for the sake of the crafting school, I'm sorry, but those who refuse to submit will be killed. After the last 3 words were spoken, a huge murderous aura burst out. Kill! 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 Not only were the soldiers not afraid, but they were also filled with fighting spirit. The 3 cries of kill were enough to make one's blood boil. Zhao Duo's face was filled with despair. Why is it like this? Why is it like this? I've already given you a chance, but none of you know how to cherish it. Eternal Speed waved his hand. Men! The 16 Supremes behind him called out, "My lord!" Supreme Eternal Speed took a deep breath and scanned the area with a sharp gaze. Then, he slowly uttered a single word, "Kill!" "Yes, Your Excellency." The 16 Supreme Martial Artists held their weapons and flew out toward the group of soldiers. They were going to slaughter hundreds of thousands of soldiers. However, the hundreds of thousands of soldiers were not afraid at all. They bravely raised the long spears in their hands, willing to fight to the death with the invincible Supreme Master with their flesh and blood. Elder Mu and the others wanted to stop them, but were stopped by Supreme Heng Velocity, who forced them to retreat. They could only watch helplessly. The group of Supreme Martial Artists raised their weapons, and with a deep roar they attacked downwards. Zhao Duo, Zhong Wei, countless officials, and the common people all closed their eyes. They couldn't bear to watch this cruel scene. However, a surprising scene occurred. The attacks of the 16 Supreme Martial Artists actually stopped about 30 feet away from the hundreds of thousands of soldiers. They were blocked by an invisible barrier and finally disappeared without a trace. For a moment, the soldiers quieted down and looked at the sky in bewilderment. The 16 Supreme Martial Artists' faces were also filled with astonishment as their brains crashed. Supreme Heng Velocity's expression instantly turned serious. There's an expert. Even he couldn't block the attacks of the 16 Supreme Martial Artists so easily. Not only did the opponent do it, but he also did it silently. He was definitely a powerful opponent. Zhao Duo, Zhong Wei, the officials, and the common people all opened their eyes. They were both happy and confused. What the hell happened? Why didn't the attacks of the 16 Supreme Martial Artists hurt the soldiers? Heng Velocity, the world calls you a hero in vain. You actually sent people to attack the soldiers. In my opinion, you're just a deceiver. A figure flew toward them at high speed from afar. When everyone in the city heard this voice and saw the person who'd arrived, a wisp of wild joy surged into their hearts. Xingqian, it's Xingqian. Zhao Duo was extremely excited. We're saved. Zhao is saved. As for why Xingqian, who had disappeared for more than 2 months, suddenly returned alone, no one had the time to think about it. They only knew that Xingqian was here, and Zhao was saved from the crisis of destruction. Zhong Wei clenched his fists and said excitedly, "This is great." Elder Mu and the others were also overjoyed. The huge rock that had been pressing down on their hearts quietly fell to the ground. Supreme Heng Velocity's expression darkened. "Xingqian, I didn't expect it to be you." But then, he frowned. "No, your strength is almost the same as mine. The person who attacked just now couldn't have been you. At least you have good eyesight." Xingqian smiled. "I'm not the only one who came back this time." "What do you mean?" Supreme Heng Velocity frowned even harder. Suddenly, he said doubtfully, "Could it be? Carefree Sovereign, Snowdrift Sovereign, and the others have also come back?" His expression became extremely serious. But then, he shook his head. No, the person who attacked just now couldn't have been Carefree Sovereign. Although Carefree Sovereign is powerful, he couldn't have done it. That mysterious existence might have reached the peak of the Supreme Martial Artist level. Xingqian smiled mockingly. "Since when did I say it was Carefree Sovereign? You might not have heard of his name, but I can tell you that the person who attacked just now," Xingqian said word by word, "he is an Earth Saint." Earth Saint. These 2 words were like a bolt of lightning that exploded in the minds of all the Supremes in the Eternal Continent. Earth Saint. The legendary Earth Saint. Supreme Heng Velocity's eyes widened. He shook his head fiercely with reddened eyes and said unwillingly, "No, I don't believe it. Earth Saints are high and mighty, and they don't care about the common populace. Even Supremes are like ants in the eyes of Earth Saints. Why would such a great existence attack for a group of ordinary people? He had never seen an Earth Saint before, but he had heard rumors about them. He didn't believe that Earth Saints would attack so easily. Just as he finished speaking, Poison Old 3, he doesn't believe it. What do you think we should do? Two figures descended from the sky, and one of them said to the other. They were Du Tong and Sha Xing. Poison, I said, just kill him. Slaughter rubbed his chin and said thoughtfully, that makes sense. Alright, Poison Old 3, do it. Kill these ants. Let me take a look and see if your strength has regressed after all these years. Call me second brother, and I'll go. Poison Eye didn't move. What, you want me to call you second brother? Slaughter was anxious. In your dreams. The two acted as if there was no one else around, arguing over who should be second brother. Xing Chun coughed and said, Sirs, Lord Black Rice. Before he could finish, Poison Eye and Slaughter turned to stare at Xing Chun and shouted, Shut up. Star Sovereign shut his mouth obediently and touched his nose awkwardly. He looked down and pretended that nothing had happened. You're so annoying, Slaughter complained. They're just ants. What's wrong with leaving them hanging for a while? Do you think they can run away? However, he was worried that Lord Black Rice would teach them a lesson if he heard about what happened here. Thus, he stopped arguing with Poison Eye and looked at Eternal Speed. Little guy, you said you didn't believe me? Slaughter grinned. However, his smile didn't seem like a smile at all. It was more like a ferocious threat. Eternal Speed's heart skipped a beat. He knew that things weren't looking good. He couldn't see through Slaughter and Poison Eye. These two strange and mysterious powerhouses. He couldn't see through them at all. If even he couldn't see through them, then they were at least at the limit of the Supremes. They might even be the legendary Earth Sage. Earth Sage. I actually offended an Earth Sage. His heart was heavy, and he even felt despair. It's bad enough to offend one, but I actually offended two at once. There were only a few Earth Sages in the entire Xingfeng Plain, and he had offended two at once. He didn't know how to evaluate his luck. A bitter smile appeared on his face. He knew that he couldn't leave today no matter what. He decided to just let it go. Senior, if you want to kill me, just kill me. Why do you have to play with me? Just this point alone made Eternal Speed think highly of him. To be able to stand on the same level as Eternal Speed, he didn't disgrace his status. You're a man. Eternal Speed commented. It's a pity that you're unlucky to be on the wrong side. Slaughter had wanted to play around a bit more, but after seeing Eternal Speed's reaction, he lost interest. He waved his hand, and a surge of law energy descended. It instantly split into 17 streams and flew towards the 17 Supremes. The 17 streams of law energy caused the souls of Eternal Speed and the others to tremble. They knew that these seemingly unremarkable things could instantly kill them. They wanted to dodge, but they sadly found that they couldn't move. They could only watch. Eternal Speed smiled bitterly. Sect Master, oh Sect Master, your decision to attack the Greenwood continent will probably ruin your reputation. These were two legendary Earth Sages. He really didn't know how the weapon refining sect would deal with two Earth Sages. In the next moment, the 17 Supremes were silently annihilated like fireworks. Under the starry night sky, beautiful flowers bloomed. Elder Mu, Zhao Duo, Zhong Wei, the iron-masked man, the soldiers, the officials, and the commoners all looked at the fireworks in the sky. 17 extremely powerful Supremes, the enemies that had forced the entire Zhao state into a desperate situation, had been dealt with by that incomparably ugly man with just a wave of his hand. What a shocking scene! The iron-masked man's breathing became heavy. He clenched his fists, and his eyes blazed. He muttered to himself, "Is this an Earth Sage?" This was the legendary Earth Sage. In the blink of an eye, 17 Supremes had been annihilated. One day, I will also become an Earth Sage. he muttered in a low voice. His voice was very calm, as if he was stating a fact. Brother, it won't be long before I go to the 8 great clans and seek justice for you. No one would have thought that this iron-masked man, a mid-level Supremes, was actually Lin Feng's younger brother, Lin Yun. P.S. The 3rd update is here. Begging for votes. Begging for votes. Weapon. Chapter 305. The laws of the Xingfeng Plain are actually so powerful. Slaughter couldn't help but frown as he complained, my strength has been suppressed by at least 80%. Poison Eye said, same. The corner of Star Sovereign's mouth twitched. Even with 80% of his strength suppressed, he was still able to kill 17 autarchs with a flick of his finger. If he wasn't suppressed, how terrifying would he be? Would he be able to kill a group of autarchs with a single glance? He didn't dare to continue thinking about it. When he was with these 2 Earth Sages, he had to be prepared to be attacked at any moment. He shook his head and sighed as he flew towards the city wall. Thank you, Senior Star Sovereign. Zhao Duo, Zhong Wei, and the others bowed in unison. Star Sovereign said, you don't have to thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank Lord Poison Eye and Lord Slaughter. Zhao Duo glanced at Poison Eye and Slaughter from afar, then asked cautiously, are these 2 seniors really Earth Sages? Earth Sages. They had only seen records of Earth Sages in ancient texts, but there were only a few words. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes and heard it with their own ears, they wouldn't have dared to believe that such legendary experts actually existed in this world. They control the lives of tens of millions of autarchs. Do you think they are Earth Sages or not? Hiss, everyone's eyes widened. Star Sovereign waved his hand and said, all right, the crisis has been resolved. This kind of thing won't happen again. You should let everyone disperse first. With so many people around, it was inconvenient to speak. Slaughter's attack just now had attracted the attention of several experts far away. In an ancient golden palace deep in the demonic beast forest, in an ancient well in the connecting mountain range, in an underground cave in the setting sun plains, on a mountain in the great Qin Empire, 6 terrifying spiritual powers instantly swept over. Experts from other planes? 2 more Earth Sages. Interesting. The Xingfeng Plain is getting more and more lively. Just 1 more. Almost all the members are gathered. Poison Eye and Slaughter's identities were instantly exposed. Slaughter's expression changed. Earth Sages. 6, Poison Eye added. Demonic Beast Forest, Ancient Golden Palace. A middle-aged man wearing a purple gold dragon robe frowned. 2 beginner Earth Sages from other planes. How dare a mere beginner Earth Sages act so arrogantly in the Xingfeng Plain? A golden light flashed across the middle-aged man's eyes. He didn't seem to make any moves, but a force suddenly gathered around Poison Eye and Kill. Boom! Boom! The 2 of them were attacked in an instant, spurting out a mouthful of blood. Their internal organs were injured to varying degrees. This time, I'll take it that you don't know the rules. I'll spare your lives for now. Don't do it again. A voice filled with supreme majesty entered their ears. Just this once. Just this once. Just this once. In front of the owner of this mysterious voice, Du Tong and Sha Xing, who had been so awe-inspiring just a moment ago, were actually unable to fight back. Yes, Senior. The 2 of them were not angry at all. Instead, they replied respectfully. Then, the faintly discernible terrifying aura around them slowly dissipated. Poison Eye and Kill looked at each other, their hearts filled with shock. Sha felt a chill in his heart, and he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The Wind Punishment Plane actually has such an expert. The mysterious man's methods reminded them of the 3 Kings of Despair prison from 30,000 years ago. Perfect Earth Sage, Poison Eye said in a hoarse voice. What was so special about the Wind Punishment Plane that it actually had such a terrifying expert? One had to know that this wasn't the Despair Prison. This was just a small plane. The Despair Prison had gone through countless years of accumulation, eliminating one peerless genius after another before finally giving birth to the three kings. The Wind Punishment Plane was not even 1/10,000th of the Despair Prison. Why did it have such a terrifying expert that was no weaker than the three kings? As expected, they were taught a lesson by that lord. He, who told them to be so arrogant the moment they arrived. Do they think the Wind Punishment Plane is the same as other planes and that they can do whatever they want? But fortunately, that lord didn't kill them. Yeah, otherwise we'd have to wait for a long time. The Earth sages who were constantly paying attention to this place laughed in schadenfreude. The Earth sage in the underground cave of the setting sun plains was incomparably gloomy. Damn, who would have thought that this small wind punishment plane would actually hide an old monster? This sage was also ruthlessly beaten up back then. My injuries were much more serious than these two idiots. I only fully recovered a few days ago. Poison Eye and Slaughter were much luckier than him. Although they were also injured, they would recover in a month or two at most. After a long time, the Earth sages slowly retracted their mental strength. Seniors, are you all right? Star Sovereign stared blankly at Poison Eye and Slaughter. Slaughter's expression stiffened and he laughed. We're fine. Perhaps we've eaten too much energy recently. It's so much that we can't take it anymore, so we spat out some blood to release some energy. It's good for our health. He had a serious and solemn expression. It seems that we can't eat too much recently. Star Sovereign's mind was filled with question marks. I don't think we've eaten anything nutritious recently, right? Moreover, what could be so nutritious that even an Earth sage couldn't take it? Slaughter glared at him. Believe it or not, if you say another word, I'll slap you to death. Sure enough, threats were useful. Star Sovereign immediately shut his mouth when he heard this. He didn't ask or mention it again. Senior Star Sovereign, Senior Poison Eye, Senior Slaughter, thank you for your help in resolving Zhao's crisis. Zhao Duo spoke at the right time. Seniors, this Emperor has ordered people to prepare a table of delicacies for you to express this Emperor's gratitude. Delicacies? Poison Eye and Slaughter originally didn't pay much attention to this little Emperor Zhao Duo. However, when they heard these words, they instantly became happy. If they were asked what they liked the most before they were locked up in the Despair Prison, they would say beauties, mountains, weapons, and so on. But now they would answer without hesitation. Delicious food. Slaughter laughed heartily. Good, I like that. Poison Eye said, I can't wait. Star Sovereign, didn't you just say that we can't eat too much recently? Slaughter and Poison Eye looked at Star Sovereign in unison. Cough cough. Star Sovereign turned his head and flew into the distance. I didn't say anything. The iron-masked man put away his weapon, glanced at everyone, and then prepared to fly away. Zhao Duo hurriedly called out to him and said sincerely, Mr. Iron Mask, this Emperor will never forget your kindness in helping Zhao. I hope you can come to Chaoyang Palace, and this Emperor will prepare a banquet to thank you. He didn't mention anything about gifts in front of this mysterious person. However, this didn't mean that he wouldn't prepare one. It was just that some things were better kept to himself. There was no need to put them out in the open. That would make him seem too unscrupulous. Hearing this, the iron-masked man hesitated for a moment. He looked at Star Sovereign and finally nodded. All right. Zhao Duo sighed in relief, and the smile on his face grew wider. Chaoyang Palace, Civil and Martial Hall. After everyone had eaten to their heart's content, Zhao Duo asked Star Sovereign, Senior Star Sovereign, this Emperor heard that you and Mr. Lin went to the 8 great clans together. After that, there was no news of you. Do you know where Mr. Lin is now? Is he all right? The iron-masked man's chopsticks paused. He pretended not to hear, but his ears were pricked up. Star Sovereign glanced at the iron-masked man. Thinking of the iron-masked man's actions outside the city, his expression softened. You can rest assured that Lin Feng is fine. After a pause, he continued, if nothing unexpected happens, Mr. Lin will return to Zhao in about 3 to 5 days. Zhao Duo sighed in relief. That's good, that's good. This emperor is relieved that Mr. Lin is fine. At the same time, the iron-masked man also secretly sighed in relief. Under the mask, a hint of joy appeared on his youthful face. Are you talking about Lin Feng? Slaughter asked as he ate. Yes, Mr. Lin's full name is Lin Feng. Facing the legendary Earth Saint, Zhao Duo still felt a lot of pressure and was very nervous. Slaughter waved his hand. You can worry about anyone, but there's really no need to worry about that kid. Poison Eye glanced at him. Even a pig's meat can't shut your mouth. Third Poison, eat your food. Don't worry about me. Slaughter replied, then looked at Zhao Duo seriously. I'm serious. Instead of worrying about Lin Feng, why don't you worry about others? Lin Feng has a bunch of thugs around him. The two of us, our big brother, and a bunch of supreme martial artists have all become his thugs. Moreover, he's a primary-level supreme martial artist. Whoever dares to provoke him is simply courting death. This time, it was Lin Feng who asked my big brother for help, so the three of us rushed back in advance. Lin Feng was a hornet's nest. Making an enemy out of Lin Feng was equivalent to making an enemy out of 3 Earth Saints, 3 high-level supreme martial artists, 8 mid-level supreme martial artists, and 25 primary-level supreme martial artists. Oh right, I'm talking about people below the Earth Saint level. Thinking of the mysterious and terrifying expert suspected to be a complete Earth Saint, who had suddenly descended not long ago, Slaughter couldn't help but tremble. Then, he immediately added. However, Zhao Duo obviously didn't notice his words, because Zhao Duo was in a state of extreme shock. Lin Feng has become a primary-level supreme martial artist? The legendary Earth Saints have become Lin Feng's thugs. Besides the Earth Saints, there's a bunch of supreme martial artists? Sha Xing's short speech contained a shocking amount of information. While Zhao Duo was in a state of shock, Xing Chen suddenly thought of Lin Feng's request and asked, by the way, our most important mission this time is to protect Lin Feng's brother. Do you know where his brother is now? Kill and Poison Eye also put down their chopsticks at the same time. Kill slapped his forehead and said, damn it, I almost forgot the most important thing. Then, the two of them looked at Zhao Duo, hoping to get an answer from him. Before Zhao Duo could speak, the iron-masked man at the side suddenly trembled, and the chopsticks in his hand suddenly fell to the ground, making a few strange sounds. These few strange sounds instantly attracted the attention of everyone in the civil and martial arts palace. The iron-masked man stood up and slowly took off his mask, revealing the young face under the mask. His eyes were glistening with tears. Lin Yun! Zhao Duo exclaimed, you, how could it be you? P.S. The 4th update is here, begging for monthly votes. Weapon. Chapter 306. Read the exclusive story behind Refining Frenzy and listen to your suggestions for the novel. Pay attention to the Chinese website's official account, add a friend on WeChat, add an official account, type Kdred, and tell me secretly. Time passed quietly. Poison Eye, Slaughter, and Star Supreme had been feasting every day for the past few days, as if they would never get tired of eating. Star Supreme was still alright, but Poison Eye and Slaughter had completely turned into gluttons. Other than eating, they were not interested in anything else. Lin Yun took off his black iron mask and stayed in Qingfeng College, waiting for Lin Feng's return. The news of the battle between supreme martial artists outside the city spread like wildfire. The citizens were delighted to talk about it, and they were deeply grateful to those who fought. Smiles began to return to their originally worried faces. This ancient city slowly walked out of the haze. Within the Han Dynasty, 10,000 meters above the sky, between the clouds, Lord Blackrice, Unfettered Supremacy, Snowdrift Supremacy, Lin Feng, and the others' figures flashed and disappeared. Lin Feng recovered his Yuan energy once again and looked at everyone with a smile. Supremacy men Luo and the others' faces stiffened. Lin Feng, your battle experience has already far surpassed ours. There's no need to continue looking for us to be your sparring partners, right? Supremacy Heavenly Thunder's head drooped. He, who feared nothing, admitted defeat in front of others for the first time. Lin Feng, you're strong. I can't beat you. So, don't look for me to be your sparring partner in the future. The other supreme martial artists also took a few steps away from Lin Feng and looked at Lin Feng cautiously. As long as Lin Feng opened his mouth, they would run far away and not give Lin Feng any chance to challenge them. It had been 3 days. They could not remember how many times they had fought with Lin Feng. At first, a beginner supreme martial artist could beat Lin Feng to death. Gradually, a few beginner supreme martial artists together could not beat Lin Feng. Later, 25 beginner supreme martial artists together were not a match for Lin Feng. After that, 8 intermediate supreme martial artists also joined the battle. Even so, they were still defeated by Lin Feng one by one. After every battle, Lin Feng would rest for 2 hours, and his battle power would soar greatly. It made people's hair stand on end. In just 3 days, they were no longer Lin Feng's match. 25 primary-level supreme martial artists and 8 intermediate-level supreme martial artists joined hands, but Lin Feng ended the battle in just half an incense stick's time. This kind of battle talent had simply frightened them. It was precisely because they had been beaten up so many times that when they saw that Lin Feng had recovered his elemental energy, they trembled in fear. Then, they had toothaches, stomachaches, headaches, and everywhere else. In any case, there was not a single part of their bodies that did not hurt. They really could not afford to lose face. 8 intermediate supreme martial artists and 25 beginner supreme martial artists together were single-handedly slaughtered by a newbie who had just stepped into the realm of beginner supreme martial artist. Moreover, it only took half an incense's time. This kind of battle was a mental torture. Anyway, they were not far from Zhao country now. They would rather die than come back. Lin Feng did not know whether to laugh or cry. Am I so scary? Heavenly Thunder Supreme snorted. You brat, don't you feel pain in your back when you are standing there? The group of sparring partners went on strike. Lin Feng did not know what to do next. Let me do it. Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist flew over and said with great interest, Lin Feng, in my opinion, in terms of battle experience, I'm afraid even Snowflake can't compare to you. Even I don't have the confidence to win against you. How about it? I'll suppress my origin energy to beginner supreme martial artist level. Are you willing to compete with me? He's not that powerful. Snowflake Supreme muttered softly. Grandpa, you think too highly of him. Lin Feng's face revealed a reserved smile. Since Senior Unfettered is interested, then Junior will be bold enough to give it a try. Good, straightforward. Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist praised. The two flew over 100 feet and looked at each other from afar. Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist did not dare to look down on Lin Feng. On the contrary, in his heart, he had already regarded Lin Feng as an expert of the same level. Lin Feng also did not dare to look down on Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist. After all, he was someone who had lived for thousands of years. His battle experience was unimaginable. Lord Blackrice said indifferently, "Let's begin." Swish. Swish. Just as Lord Blackrice finished speaking, Lin Feng and Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist's figures moved almost at the same time. Moreover, they rushed towards each other's direction. Supreme Martial Artist Men Luo, Supreme Heavenly Thunder, and the rest all focused on the battle. They were incomparably excited. One had to know that such an opportunity was rare. Too fast. The two of them are actually so fast. Elementary Supreme Martial Artist. Just by relying on his origin energy, he can erupt with such speed. Too powerful. Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist is indeed an advanced Supreme Martial Artist. His control over his origin energy and body is far from what we can compare to. Lin Feng is not bad either. He is actually on par with Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist. After an incense stick's time, the two figures flashed and disappeared in different places in the sky. However, the two of them did not manage to land a single punch on each other. It was not that their attacks were not sharp enough, but that their dodging was equally terrifying. Advanced Supreme Martial Artist is indeed worthy of his reputation. Senior Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist grasps the timing of each dodging too accurately. His explosive speed also surpasses mine by a bit. It is too difficult to hit him. Lin Feng was incomparably shocked. He originally thought that he would be able to hit his opponent a few times, but in the end, he did not. After an incense stick's time, he did not hit his opponent even once. Lin Feng was shocked, but Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist was even more shocked than Lin Feng. Originally, Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist had already thought highly of Lin Feng. However, when he really fought with Lin Feng, he discovered that Lin Feng was even more powerful than he had imagined. Lin Feng's dodging is not restricted to form at all. Every time he dodges, he only needs to expend a bit of origin energy to bring out the greatest effect. How did he do it? Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist was secretly shocked. His dodging is so powerful and his attacks are actually not inferior at all. Every part of his body can instantly turn into a sharp weapon. If I am not careful, I will be hit by him. One was a veteran advanced Supreme Martial Artist who had accumulated thousands of years of battle experience. Moreover, his own talent was also extremely outstanding. The other was a rookie who had just stepped into Elementary Supreme Martial Artist. However, his battle talent was undeniable. A few days of bitter cultivation was comparable to the accumulation of thousands of years of others. Two terrifying monsters. Who would win and who would lose in the end? 2 incense sticks time. Their origin energy is actually not exhausted yet. Supreme Martial Artist Men Luo sucked in a breath of cold air. If it were them, in a battle of the same level, their origin energy would have been exhausted in a little more than an incense stick's worth of time. However, Lin Feng and Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist were actually doing it with ease, without the slightest hint of fatigue. Their origin energy was incomparably abundant, as if the battle had just begun. It was indeed a little frightening. They could completely understand why Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist was able to persist. After all, although Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist had suppressed his origin energy to Elementary Supreme Martial Artist level, his total amount of origin energy had not changed. Not to mention 2 incense sticks time, even a day and a night wouldn't be much of a problem. However, Lin Feng was actually able to do it. This was a huge blow to their hearts. Supreme Martial Artist Heavenly Thunder was both envious and depressed. Lin Feng, this guy is simply a freak. Originally, he thought that everyone would laugh at him for swearing. However, he didn't expect that everyone would reveal a look of deep understanding. Wasn't that right? Lin Feng was a freak, a complete and utter freak. As the group got closer and closer to Zhao Country, the battle between Lin Feng and Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist still hadn't ended. Lin Feng and Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist's origin energy was still enough to support them to continue fighting. I can't go on. I only have a third of my origin energy left. If this continues, my origin energy will be exhausted. Lin Feng was a little anxious in his heart. However, he didn't have any way to change the situation. Senior Unfettered's dodging is too amazing. Every time he dodges, there's no loophole. I can't hit him at all. At this time, 4 hours had already passed since the start of the battle. Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist suddenly spoke. If this continues, we won't be able to determine the victor. Why don't we have a head-on battle? Lin Feng had the same idea. When he heard Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist's suggestion, he immediately agreed. Okay. However, he immediately reacted. If this continued, he would eventually be exhausted of origin energy. Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist would be able to obtain victory without any suspense. It wasn't that they couldn't determine the victor. However, Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist didn't do that. Instead, he took the initiative to propose a head-on battle. Although the chances of Lin Feng defeating Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist using this opportunity were almost negligible, there was still hope, wasn't there? He didn't point it out. Instead, he raised his evaluation of Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist once again. From this point of view, Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist was a straightforward and upright person with a true temperament. He wasn't willing to take advantage of Lin Feng. Boom! Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist and Lin Feng struck out their fists at the same time, colliding head-on. A thunderous sound spread out in all directions. When the people on the ground heard this sound, they suddenly raised their heads. However, they couldn't see anything. They were puzzled. Strange, there are no dark clouds and no rain. Why is there thunder all of a sudden? The two retreated after exchanging blows. As they flew away, they sent out another punch. After a few punches, the two were evenly matched. In the end, the two simply sent out 2 punches. Punch after punch flew out continuously. Boom, 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 the two punched at each other. As their fists collided, a deafening sound rang out. Wherever they passed, the sound would spread to the ground, causing even more people to be puzzled. Why is there thunder for no reason? After a long time, Lin Feng took the initiative to stop. He bowed towards Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist and said in an ashamed voice, "This junior's origin energy is almost depleted. This junior has lost. He already didn't have much origin energy left. If he continued to fight, he might not even be able to fly." Supreme Martial Artist Men Luo and the others let out a sigh of relief. No matter what, Lin Feng had lost, so they felt a bit better. If Lin Feng had won, they didn't know if they should buy a piece of tofu and kill themselves. However, Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist shook his head and said, "No, on the surface, I won. But in reality, it's you who won." Hearing this, Supreme Martial Artist Men Luo and the others, who had just let out a sigh of relief, felt their hearts skip a beat. Unfettered Supreme Martial Artist looked at Lin Feng calmly and said with a smile, "Although your origin energy is depleted, my origin energy consumption is even greater than yours. In a situation where we have the same amount of origin energy, I will exhaust my origin energy before you do." A win was a win. A loss was a loss. He didn't feel that there was anything shameful about it. His words were very magnanimous. The surrounding Supreme Martial Artists stared with their eyes wide open. So it seems that Lin Feng really won? P.S. The first update is here. Requesting monthly votes. A good activity like a pie falling from the sky. Cool phones waiting for you. Click on the Chinese network's official account, add a friend on WeChat, add a public account, type Kdred, and participate immediately. Everyone has a prize. Follow Kdred's official account immediately. Chapter 307. P.S. Read the exclusive story behind Refining Frenzy and listen to your suggestions for the novel. Pay attention to the Chinese website's official account, add a friend on WeChat, add an official account, type Kdred, and tell me secretly. When Unfettered Supreme admitted that he was inferior to Lin Feng, everyone's expression became rather interesting. They had been guessing back and forth, but they never expected this result. It's over. Even Senior Unfettered is inferior to this brat. Supreme Heavenly Thunder was incomparably depressed. It seems that no one can stop him. In the past, they could torment Lin Feng to death. Now, they didn't even have the qualifications to be Lin Feng's sparring partners. The gap was too big. Even if they continued to be Lin Feng's sparring partners, there wouldn't be much effect. Lin Feng's heart was extremely unsettled. He clenched his fist. Now, I can be considered to have left the category of a rookie, right? Whether the group of Supremes admitted it or not, Lin Feng's fighting strength had already surpassed most of them. Now, even if he used the Law of Earth, Supreme Menlo and the other mid-level Supremes would at most be able to fight to a draw with Lin Feng. They would no longer be able to beat Lin Feng to the point where he couldn't even retaliate like before. As expected of my boss. He actually defeated that old man. Nono said excitedly. No, Senior Unfettered just didn't use the Law of Earth. If he did, I wouldn't even be able to withstand a single blow. Lin Feng explained. The gap between me and Senior Unfettered is still very big. Nono didn't care at all. Boss, what are you afraid of? At most, the two of us can just attack together. I don't believe that old man can handle it. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. He flew onto Nono's back and said, Let me recover my Yuan energy first. This time, after Lin Feng's consciousness entered Space One, no one came to disturb him. Honorable Meng Luo and the others didn't have the habit of looking for trouble. After Honorable Carefree fought with Lin Feng, he also gained some benefit. He was in deep thought the entire journey. Snowdrift Honorable admitted that he wasn't Lin Feng's opponent, so he obediently followed beside Honorable Carefree. Lord Black Rice was too powerful, so he wasn't interested in fighting with Lin Feng. The two of them weren't on the same level. If Lin Feng fought with Lord Black Rice, he would only end up being instantly killed. Number 1, let's begin. Taking a deep breath, Lin Feng turned around and nodded at Number 1. At this time, the difficulty of the training difficulty level to the mid-level. The mid-level simulation's combat strength rose sharply. Compared to the low-level simulation, it was on a completely different level. Lin Feng could completely suppress the low-level simulation in every aspect. However, when facing the mid-level simulation, Lin Feng couldn't resist at all. It was as if he had returned to the time when he first started training, when he could only take a beating. Bang! 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 Lin Feng's disheveled figure appeared on the left, then on the right. He gritted his teeth and endured the pain that was infinitely magnified. The simulation's attack frequency and speed were too fast. It didn't give Lin Feng any time to react. Lin Feng didn't have the time to think about how to dodge. The only thing he could do was to use all his strength to dodge the attacks. Ever since he started training, Lin Feng hadn't been in such a sorry state for a long time. Today, Lin Feng once again felt like he was powerless to persevere through the intermediate difficulty simulation. In Space One, Lin Feng, who was fighting, couldn't feel the passage of time. Because for him, this kind of battle felt like a year. Every minute and every second seemed infinitely long. Bang! Swoosh! Bang! Finally, Lin Feng unknowingly dodged a simulation's attack. This made Lin Feng see a glimmer of hope. He understood that his dodging ability had risen to another level. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, Lin Feng's combat experience didn't increase by much, but his combat awareness was increasing at an astonishing speed. In fact, the more powerful an expert was, the more they would rely on their combat awareness. The effect of combat awareness was far better than combat experience. That was because when one reached the heights of a high-level Supreme Being, and even Earth Saint, a battle would only take an instant. Victory and defeat could be decided in the blink of an eye. There was no time for one to think at all. Thus, combat awareness was especially important. Even Lin Feng himself didn't know that his combat awareness had grown to an extremely high level. Even unfettered Supremes might not be better than him. After an unknown period of time, Lin Feng was gradually able to dodge all of the simulation's attacks in the battle with the simulation. Lin Feng was able to rely on his excellent battle awareness to find the slightest flaw in the simulated human's almost perfect attack, and thus, he was able to dodge the attack. Half a year later, in this enclosed space number 1. The mid-level difficulty doesn't seem to be as difficult as I thought. Lin Feng smiled slightly. The next moment, he launched an attack on the simulation. Head. Lin Feng pretended to hit the simulation with his head, but in the next moment, he instantly kicked out with his leg. Bang! The simulation was kicked in the chest and flew out. Lin Feng chased after it and smashed down with his elbow. Boom! The simulation that was sent flying instantly fell down. It's not over yet. He burst out with speed and rushed to the simulation's lower body, and his knee kicked upwards. Bang! The simulation's lumbar spine was hit, and a crack sound was heard. Just hearing it was enough to make one's scalp tingle. A series of dazzling attacks were completed in an instant, as if it was a set of combo move. However, this was not a combo, but the embodiment of Lin Feng's combat awareness. He was able to make the best judgment at every moment. His attacks were like water that penetrated every hole. As long as there was the slightest flaw, it would be seized by him. As long as he seized the opportunity to hit once, there was basically no way to make a comeback. This was because his attacks would continue until the last second, until the enemy was KO'd. At this moment, Lin Feng was afraid that even unfettered Supremes would be KO'd in an instant. After torturing the simulation, the combat training ended. Lin Feng's consciousness left Space 1. The origin energy in his body recovered to its original state, and even increased slightly, but it was not obvious. Lin Feng will be here soon. Unfettered Supremes laughed heartily. After leaving for more than 2 months, you're finally back. Everyone couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Although it was only a short 2 months, the things they experienced in these 2 months were more than what they had experienced in the past half of their lives. It was more exciting, more bizarre. Although they almost couldn't make it back, they still didn't regret it. At the very least, these memories would become a valuable asset in their lives. Lin Feng sighed. Yes, we're finally back. He had finally returned to this familiar land, to this familiar country. Zhao Capital is right in front. They flew above Zhao Capital and quickly descended. In a few breaths' time, they arrived at Chaoyang Palace. Nono transformed back to her original size and stood on Lin Feng's shoulder. Big brother! Big brother! Mr. Lin! Poison Eye, Killer, and Star Supremes had already noticed the arrival of Lord Black Rice, Lin Feng, and Unfettered Supremes. Before they entered Zhao Capital, they had already informed Emperor Zhao Duo and Qinfeng College's Lin Yun. Therefore, when they arrived at Chaoyang Palace, Zhao Duo and Lin Yun had already arrived. Other than that, they didn't inform anyone else. At this moment, seeing Lin Feng and the others return, Zhao Duo and Lin Yun were extremely excited. Lin Yun's eyes were immediately filled with tears, and he no longer looked as cold as the iron-faced man. Lin Yun. Lin Feng walked toward Lin Yun. He was quite excited. He reached out his hand to pat Lin Yun's shoulder, but his hand stopped in midair. He awkwardly retracted his hand and smiled bitterly. I haven't seen you for half a year, and you've grown so tall. Lin Feng was 1.8 meters tall, while Lin Yun was 2.1 meters tall. The difference wasn't small at all. Lin Yun didn't think so much. His heart was filled with excitement, and his voice was choked with emotion. Big brother! You're fine, that's great. Ha ha! Lin Feng looked at his younger brother and couldn't help but laugh. Silly boy, what could have happened to me? Alright, don't cry. Otherwise, people will laugh at you. Our Lin family members are all true men. We bleed, but not tears. I'll listen to you, big brother. Lin Yun wiped his tears and nodded heavily. Lin Feng nodded with satisfaction, then looked at Zhao Duo. Your Majesty, how have you been? Zhao Duo said, Thank you, Mr. Lin. Your Majesty, you're thanking the wrong person. I didn't do anything. If you want to thank someone, thank Lord Poison Eye, Lord Killer, and Senior Star Supremes. Lin Feng said with a smile. However, fortunately, nothing happened to everyone. Otherwise, even if we kill all the supreme martial artists in the Eternal Continent, we won't be able to salvage anything. Since Lord Black Rice saw Lin Yun, his eyes had been fixed on Lin Yun. After a while he asked Lin Feng, Is this your younger brother? Your biological younger brother? Lin Feng frowned. Lord Black Rice, your words are a little. Cough, cough. Lord Black Rice immediately apologized. I'm sorry. It's mainly because your younger brother is too shocking. That's why I said something offensive. Shocking? Lin Feng was stunned. Don't you see? Lord Black Rice pointed at Lin Yun and said in an extremely shocked tone, Your younger brother is only 17 years old, but his cultivation has reached the level of a mid-level supreme martial artist. This talent is really amazing. Black Rice, have been to many places. In the Despair Prison, I have seen countless geniuses from different dimensions. However, I have never seen a genius like your younger brother. No, maybe your talent is slightly better than your younger brother's. However, in terms of cultivation talent, perhaps even you are not as good as your younger brother. Mid-level supreme martial artist? In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on Lin Yun. This young man with a tender face and childishness was actually a mid-level supreme martial artist. Supreme Heavenly Thunder was even more shocked. He couldn't help but say, Lin Feng, is everyone in the Lin family so abnormal? Not only Supreme Heavenly Thunder, but the other supreme martial artists were also extremely shocked. Isn't the bloodline of the Lin family too terrifying? One Lin Feng is already shocking enough. Now, there is a genius who is even more terrifying than Lin Feng. The supreme martial artists gasped. If there was only a genius like Lin Feng, then so be it. However, now that even Lin Feng's younger brother was such a genius, they had no choice but to blame it all on the bloodline of the Lin family. Lord Black Rice, Poison Eye, and Kill all thought of the same person at the same time. Lin Hai. As expected of the descendant of that terrifying person. Looking for monthly votes, looking for guaranteed monthly votes. Weapon, what a good event for free. Cool mobile phones waiting for you. Click on the Chinese website's official account, add a friend on WeChat, add a public account, type Kdred, and participate immediately. There will be a prize for everyone. Follow Kdred's official account now. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.